ভিডিও তুলবি না ফটো তুলবি তোর হাত ধরে গেলে বলবি তখন দিদি ভালো করে পোজ দাও
A very hearty and cheerful good morning to everyone. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to this one-day lecture series on partition literature organized by Department of English, ASANSOL Girls College. This academic gathering brings us together to reflect upon one of the most significant and traumatic events in the subcontinent's history, the partition, and its resonant echoes in literature across borders, languages, and generations. We are privileged to be joined today by an esteemed panel of scholars and educators whose insights promise to deepen our understanding of this complex and deeply human theme. The partition of India in 1947 was the division of British India into two independent dominant states, the Union of India and the Dominion of Pakistan. The Union of India is today the Republic of India and the Dominion of Pakistan, the Islamic Republic Pakistan and the People's of Republic of Bangladesh. The partition involved the division of two provinces, Bengal and Punjab, based on two district-wise Hindu or Muslim majorities. It also involved the division of British Indian Army, the Royal Indian Navy, the Indian Civil Service, the railways, the Central Treasury between two new dominions. The partition was set forth in the Indian Independence Act 1947 and resulted in the dissolution of British Raj or colonial rule to Crown rule in India. The two self-governing countries of India and Pakistan legally came into existence at midnight on 14 to 15 August 1947. The partition displaced between 12 and 20 million people along religious lines. There was large scale of violence with estimates of loss of life accompanying or preceding the partition dispute and varying between several hundred thousand and 2 million. Now I will request or I would like to hand over the mic to our respected Professor Kasturi Mukherjee ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. Still a few more minutes to go into an afternoon. We welcome our esteemed guests, Dr. Shantanu Niyogi from Raniganj Girls College, Professor Pritam Dash from Deshbandhu College, Deshbandhu Mahavidyalaya Chittaranjan, Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Mahavidyalaya, yes. And of course, our very own Professor Shomitra Roy from Kaji Nazrul Islam Mahavidyalaya on stage. We are continuing our lecture series from yesterday on partition literature. This is our second day. We have had a wonderful, cozy, friendly run yesterday where the questionnaire session was very lively after our esteemed speakers spoke yesterday. And we are very hopeful that we're going to have the same kind of a run today too with the esteemed professors sitting over here. And uh, we would like to also just put into context whatever we did yesterday a little bit, in the sense that we were talking about texts, partition, and how literature is a very, very important aspect of remembering and commemorating this terrible event that took place in India, the partition. And I remember, I've been thinking of this poem, number 1263 from Emily Dickinson, where Dickinson says that truth is better when it is told in slant. And that is where the importance of literature, I suppose, lies in focusing or talking about traumatizing events like the partition in India. And of course, this is one of the major traumatizing events in the subcontinent, but definitely not one in the entire world. The Holocaust is another one. And with respect to Holocaust, I would just like to point out for my students that there is this wonderful concept I would want to want you to look into. It's called Post Memory. And I think it has very great relevance for partition literature too. It's for you to find out. That's it. And another thing I would like to point out, and I hope the professors would here address it too, to a certain extent, is we're starting at a very, very interesting turn of events where what is generally known as the vegetal turn, and we've been talking about partition from the very anthropocentric perspective. But what happens when we really, really focus on the scars that were left on the land? Not only on human beings, but on the land itself. What happens when the rivers are divided? Robert McFarlane has a new book coming up called Is a River Alive? And I think that's a very pertinent question for India too, in the sense that its rivers are divided between Pakistan and India. And we are seeing an unfolding, an aftermath of those decisions right now in our country. So I'll leave the stage to the professors right now and let them carry on whatever they have to teach you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. As ma'am said, we are very lucky to have Professor Soumitra Roy, faculty member of Kazi Nazrul University Department of English, along with Dr. Shantanu Niyogi, professor and head of Department of English, Raniganj Girls College, also Professor Pritam Das, assistant professor of English, Deshbandhu Mahavidyalaya, Chittaranjan. So I request Ajay sir and our volunteers for the felicitation. I will also like to call Kasturi ma'am on the stage for felicitation. Now I would like to introduce yes, Dr. Vinay Mishra, and I will request him to please hand over the felicitation. Now I would like to invite Kasturi ma'am to please felicitate our Pritam sir. And last but not the least, I wanted to call Ajay sir for honoring Dr. Shantanu Yogi sir.
শান্তনুর ফ্লাওয়ার বুকেটা আইকিউএসি রুমে রয়েছে, আপাতত লক পেন্ডিং রয়েছে।
Okay, thank you all. Now I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Niyogi. Dr. Shantanu Niyogi, Associated Professor and Hague Department of English, Raniganj Girls College, is an alumnus of the Wristwheel CIEFL Hyderabad and recipient of the prestigious Anne Krisha Swamy Endowment Prize 1997 for his outstanding performance there. He had been a UGC teacher fellow at Banaras Hindu University from where he earned his doctoral degree. His areas of academic interest including Shakespeare studies, Renaissance studies, linguistic and contemporary literary theory. He has been teaching English literature for more than 25 years and has quite a number of academic publications from renowned publication house including Springer. To his credit, he is also an avid cultivator of pre-Gutenberg art of calligraphy besides other hobbies. And now I would like to hand over the mic to our Dr. Nyogi sir.
ল্যাপটপটা উপরে উঠবে না? না না, আপনি কোন কি করতে হবে, পিপিটিটা চালাতে হবে, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ওইটাই দিয়ে অপারেট করবে না, পিপিটিটা চালিয়ে দেবো, পিপিটিটা তো আমি দেখতে পাবো না, তাহলে সামনেটা ওইখানে দেখতে হবে, আমাকে পেছন ফিরতে হবে না, ওইখানে দেখতে হবে না, আমাকে পেছন ফিরে দেখতে হবে, তাই তো? আর এখানে দেখুন, এখানে সামনে দেখতে হবে, তাহলে ওইখানে আসবে না তো, ও সামনে তো কপি করে পেছন ফিরে সামনে তো আপনি দেখতে পাবেন, চলে আসবেন, ঝামেলা অনেক জিনিসটা লাগানো আছে, না না আমি দেখি কোনটা আছে বলুন, নামটা হচ্ছে যে গুলজার, পিপিটি আছে গুলজার, গুলজার রোবোটিক্স, ওটাগুলো আপনি কপি করে নিন। এটা তো আপনার কাজে লাগবে না, লাগবে, এইখানে এইটা নেক্সট কি করে হবে তাহলে, আপনি ওইখানে এইটা কি করে নিন, এইটা কি করবেন, এই ল্যাপটপে নেক্সট ওই ল্যাপটপটা আপনি চালাবেন, এটা আমার সঙ্গে এটা মিলবে কি করে, এটাও টিপতে হবে আপনাকে, ওইটাই তো বলছি, দুটো উপরে টিপতে হবে,
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My esteemed colleagues from different colleges, including ASANSOL Girls College, and my dear students. I'm really grateful to the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of ASANSOL Girls College for inviting me on this occasion. And I am particularly grateful to my friend, Dr. Ajay Sengupta, who is an associate professor here in the Department of English, and who happens to be my friend and classmate. Now, he asked me particularly to talk to the students about a particular poem pertaining to your course in partition literature. Though I don't teach partition literature in my college, I could not refuse Professor Ajay Sengupta's request, and therefore I decided to speak a few words, or at least my understanding of Gulzar's poem Toba Tek Singh. Now, should I direct it to this? Yeah. Now, when the speakers were being introduced, before that, uh, the student introducer as well as one faculty member gave some preliminary remarks about partition and the partition literature. Now we know that partition was such a traumatic experience for us, and we can possibly never recover from it. But when we study partition literature as an academic discipline, or as a course in the undergraduate curriculum, I think we should have some basic ideas about the partition itself, some historical facts about the partition itself. It has been my very unfortunate experience with students that I have come to the perception that they don't have adequate understanding of the freedom struggle, and they don't have any concrete idea how these two nations developed in the late 40s. Now, I have tried to present some basic facts before we go into the text. The partition of India in 47 was a result of complex political negotiations, communal tensions, and colonial policies. Actually, the idea was first moved in the Lahore Conference of the Muslim League in the year 1940. And from that point onwards, it gradually gained momentum, and the tension between the two communities uh, went growing. Okay, and ultimately, it resulted in the emergence of the two-nation theory. And in spite of the initial British efforts of transferring power to a united nation, a unified nation, it was later on decided that the nation will ultimately be divided or bifurcated in terms of religion, and ultimately these two uh, nations were created. One was Pakistan and the other one was our India. Now, we all know that this partition not only created a lot of trouble for many people, displaced them from their homelands. Many people were subjected to rape, murder, and mutilations. Many children were orphaned, right? So it was a huge human disaster. Now, before this partition took place, some formalities were, fixed up. How the assets and other resources will be distributed between these two nations. First, the Indian Independence Act was passed by the British Parliament on July 18, 1947. Then the Boundary Commission under the chairmanship of Sir Cyril Ratcliffe was established. Actually, there were two boundary commissions because the nation had to be divided on the western border as well as on the eastern border. So, for the state of Punjab, there was one boundary commission, and for the state of Bengal, there was another. And these boundary commission decided the final boundary lines after the independence, that is, India became independent on 15th of August, but the Boundary Commission declared the final boundary lines on 17th of August 1947. And the assets of these two nations were also divided, mostly on 80-20 ratio, because India was a larger nation. It was decided that 80% of the resources will be allocated to India and the rest of the 20% will go to Pakistan. Even every stationery item, including postal stationery and other stationery item, were also divided strictly according to this policy. So when the story Toba Tek Singh opens with the statement that it was decided after the independence or during the independence that even the inmates of a lunatic asylum will be exchanged. It was not a figment of imagination of Manto. It was a reality, right? Because everything had to be divided and exchanged in terms of religion and other things. Okay. Now, even the British Army, British Indian Army was divided, and the princely states were also allotted to two nations. Uh, there were more than 560 princely states who were given the option to join India or Pakistan on geographic proximity and the will of the rulers. Now, partition literature. Now, any historical event, leaves an impression on our mind, and culturally we react to that. And his partition was such a significant event that it had left a deep impression on the mind of the people who lived at the time, and they reacted culturally to this great human disaster. The partition literature of India generally refers to the body of literary works that emerged in response to the traumatic events surrounding the partition of British India in 1947, which led to the creation of India and Pakistan. The division triggered one of the largest mass migrations in human history and was marked by widespread violence, loss, and displacement. Writers from India, Pakistan, and the diaspora have explored the human cost of partition, often focusing on themes such as identity, trauma, communal violence, memory, and the enduring psychological scars. Now, the poem that I am going to deal with is Guljar's Toba Tek Singh, but that is actually a riposte or a response to, or that is, rather, it engages itself in a dialogue with Sadat Hasan Manto's short story, eponymous short story, that is Toba Tek Singh. Now, I hope yesterday someone talked about Toba Tek Singh. Okay, so you know about Toba Tek Singh, and I hope you also know about Sadat Hasan Manto. So I will not spend much time here. I'll skip this part. Shall I? Yeah. Okay, fine. Thank you. Now, yeah, this is about story Toba Tek Singh and Visan Singh, who is the protagonist of the story. Since you know the story and it has been discussed threadbare yesterday, I will not go deep into it right at the moment to save some time. Uh, now, if you look at the major themes of Banto's Toba Tek Singh, we find that it deals with the absurdity and tragedy of partition, the loss of identity and belonging, the madness of political decisions, the human cost of drawing arbitrary borders. Now, Toba Tek Singh is not just a critique of partition, it's a profound comment on the madness of nationalism and the pain of displacement, all seen through the eyes of someone considered mad, but who might be the sanest of all. Now, I, I would like to introduce you to Gulzar, who is a very renowned figure because As students, you are avid listeners of popular Hindi songs, right? So you must have listened to many songs which were originally composed by Gulzar. Now, Gulzar was born as Sampuran Singh Kalra on August 18, 1934, in a place called Dina, which is now in Pakistan. Now, this place is important because I am going to talk about a particular book which he published in the year 2017, which he dedicated to his birthplace, Dina. I'll come back to it once again. Uh, and he is a famous poet, lyricist, screenwriter, and film director. Now, Gulzar was deeply affected by the partition of India, which forced him to move to Delhi as a teenager. This trauma of displacement and memories of his childhood home frequently appeared in his poetry and prose, infusing them with a quiet, poignant nostalgia. Now, as a lyricist, Gulzar has written some of the most iconic songs in Indian cinema, collaborating with great composers like R.D. Burman, A.R. Rahman, and Vishal Bharadwaj. He has also been a renowned film director, directing films like Mausam, Aandhi, Ijazat, and Machis. And he has also written short stories and poems. The poem that we are going to deal with is one such poem composed by him, and he was awarded with Padma Bhushan, this Dada Saheb Phalke Award, Academy Award, and Grammy. So Gulzar's writing style is marked by economy of words with deep emotional impact. So this is a very important point because we'll notice this particular trait in the poem that we are going to deal with today. A blend of metaphor and realism, a strong sense of place and memory, especially related to partition, frequent use of nature imagery and everyday objects to express complex emotions. Gulzar remains a towering figure in Indian literature and cinema, a bridge between generations, languages, and traditions. Before I deal with Toba Tek Singh by Gulzar, I would like to introduce you to another short poem written by him. The title of this poem is Lines of Partition. The poem reads something like this: when the house was partitioned, the courtyard too was divided. But how do you divide the breeze that passed through it? The fragrance from the flowers on either side? The song that a bird sang on his wall, on this wall, and the echo that landed on that wall? So it's a very short poem, but it sends a very strong message. We may draw arbitrary lines between two geographical areas. We may divide lands. We may raise, barbed fences. But can we divide the natural resources? Can we divide the common identity, shared identities, or shared cultures? We cannot. Right? So that is the message that this particular poem is trying to drive home. So this poem is also is included in that famous anthology that I am going to deal with, which is titled Footprints on Zero Line. It's an anthology of prose compositions, non-fiction, and poems composed by Gulzar on the theme of partition. It was published in the year 2017. Uh, this is the uh, this is the book I am going to talk about because the poem Toba Tek Singh is included in this particular anthology. Now, this anthology was published by HarperCollins on 25th August 2017. And the poems and other pieces were translated by his friend Rakshanand Jalil. and the anthology was dedicated to Dina, my birthplace in Pakistan. These are the words of Gulzar, of course. To Dina, my birthplace in Pakistan. So the memory of his homeland, is always there. It never died. And published on 25th August 2017, on the occasion of the 70th year of Indian independence, this anthology contains the core writings of Gulzar on partition, including fiction, non-fiction, and poems, and they are actually translations from the original compositions in Urdu and Hindustani. The underlying common concern of these pieces is how the events of 1947 affect us even today. What is particularly interesting about the author's note, which appears right at the beginning of the anthology, uh, the author Gulzar says, I have witnessed the partition. I have experienced the partition. Standing on zero line, I am still watching the trail of partition. 70 years have passed. Time has not been able to blow off the footprints. I don't know how long it will take for them to sink into history and be the past. Rakshananda has been kind to compile this work on partition, and Shantanu, my able editor, has been kind to conduct the notes with his baton very well. So this is very significant. I think you should also quote from this particular author's note when you write your answers, because it strongly talks about his memory or the bitter memories of partition, which are never going to subside. Now I move on to the poem itself, Gulzar's Toba Tek Singh, which is there in this particular anthology. Since many of the students here present are speakers of Hindi, I hope they should also get to know the original. Though I am not a Hindi speaker and my pronunciation of Hindi is atrocious, still I would like to I would like to read out the original piece, which was translated into English in this particular form. Toba Tek Singh. मुझे वागा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले विषम के साथ जाके मिलना है। सुना है वो अभी तक सूझे पैरों पर खड़ा है जिस जगह मंटो ने छोड़ा था। Is it? Can you understand it? Okay, fine. So, वो अब तक बड़बड़ाता है, ऊपर दी गुरगुर मूंग दी डाल दी लालटेन। पता लेना है उस पागल का, ऊंची डाल पर चढ़कर जो कहता था खुदा है वो, उसी को फैसला करना है किसका गांव किस हिस्से में जाएगा। वो कब उतरेगा अपनी डाल से, उसको बताना है अभी कुछ और भी दौल है कि जिनको बांटने का काटने का काम जारी है। वो बंटवारा तो पहला था, अभी कुछ और बंटवारा भी बाकी है। मुझे वागा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले विषम से जाके मिलना है, खबर देनी है उसके दोस्त अफजल की, जो लहन सिंह, वाधवा सिंह, वो बेन अमृत, जो सारे कत्ल होकर इस तरफ आए थे, उनकी गर्दनें सामान ही में लूट गई पीछे। जमा कर दो वो भूरी, अब कोई लेने नहीं आएगा। जमा कर दो वो भूरी, अब कोई लेने ना आएगा। वो लड़की एक उंगली जो बड़ी होती थी हर 12 महीनों में, वो अब हर एक बरस एक पोटा पोटा घटती रहती है। बताना है कि सब पागल अभी पहुंचे नहीं अपने ठिकाने पर, बहुत से इस तरफ है और बहुत से उस तरफ भी हैं। मुझे बगा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले विसन अफसर कही अफसर यही कह के बुलाता है, ऊपर दी गुड़ गुड़ मूंग दी दाल दी लालटेन, दा हिंदुस्तान ने पाकिस्तान दी दूर फतेह मुंह. So this is more or less the original Urdu poem, right? So you got the main idea, right? This was later on translated into English by Mr. Zalil, and the English version runs something like this. I have to meet Toba Tek Singh's vision at Wagah. He still stands there on solemn feet, where Manto had left him mumbling, Gopurdi, Gurgurdi, Mungdi, Daldi, Laltain. I have to search for that madman who would climb a high branch and proclaim that he was God, and only he could decide which village would go to which side. And when will he descend from his branch? I have to tell him that the job of dividing and cutting is still in progress. That partition was the first one. Some more partitions remain. I have to meet Toba Tek Singh's vision at Wagah and tell him about his friend Afzal and Lahan Singh, Wada Singh, Amrit Behan, all of whom came this side after they were killed. Their heads were looted with their belongings on the way. It's time to sacrifice Buri. No one will come for her now. And that girl who grew a finger's length every 12 months now shrinks by part of a finger year by year. I have to tell him that not all lunatics have reached their destinations. There are many who still roam around on both sides. Tobatek Singh's vision often calls me to Wagah, saying, Upar di, Gurgur di, Moong di, Dal di, Laltain, di Hindustan, te Pakistan, di Dur, ite Mu. Now, now, if you want to understand this particular poem, you must have some basic idea about this concept called intertextuality. Now, intertextuality, why is this concept important? Because this particular poem is explicitly engaged in a dialogue with Manto's short story. But apart from that, it also engages itself in a dialogue with other literary pieces, particularly Khuswan Singh's Train to Pakistan, and I would later on also try to explain how it is also related in a remote way to Rabindranath Tagore's one particular poem. Now, intertextuality is a literary and theoretical concept that refers to the relationship between texts and how they influence, reflect, or differ from each other. Coined by Julia Kristeva in the 60s, the term suggests that no text exists in isolation. Instead, every text is shaped by and echoes other texts through direct quotation, allusion, parody, pastiche, or adaptation. This idea emphasizes that meaning is not fixed or solely created by the author, but is also generated through the reader's recognition of connections through other works. For instance, James Joyce's Ulysses is deeply intertextual as it mirrors Homer's Odyssey. In essence, intertextuality highlights the interconnectedness of cultural expressions and the dynamic process of interpretation shaped by context and prior knowledge. So, to understand this particular poem, we must have the prior knowledge of Manto's short story of the same name, and we'll see how it relates to different parts of the story, okay, by referring to the text, okay. pointed out, Gulzar's poem Toba Tek Singh uh, has an intertextual relationship with Manto's Toba Tek Singh, Kuswant Singh's Train to Pakistan, and Tagore's poem number 35 of Gitanjali. Now, when I say that Gulzar engages himself with Manto in a dialogue, I would like to point out some interesting points regarding both the authors, which will establish them, as two aspects of the partition diaspora. Manto and Gulzar, if we compare their years of birth, Manto was born in 1912, Gulzar was born in the year 1934. Manto was born in Ludhiana, which is now in India. Gulzar was born in Dina, which is now in Pakistan. Manto was born in a Sunni Islamist family, and Gulzar was born in a Sikh family. Now, later on, after the partition, Manto moved to Pakistan and Gulzar moved to India. One composition that we are considering here is in prose, the other one is in verse. If you consider the time of composition, Manto's composition was in 1950s and Gulzar's composition was in 2017, which was some 70 years later. Gulzar's Toba Tek Singh is a riposte, a sequel, a companion piece of the original eponymous story. It is a dialogue between two authors and two epochs set apart by 70 years. Now, if you right. Now, this particular poem is composed in 7 stanzas of unequal number of lines. 7 stanzas are unequal in length. Some of the stanzas have 5 lines, some have 3 lines. Okay, the structure is uneven, and there is no regular rhythm. It's composed in free verse. There is not even any rhyme. So, if you consider all these points from the perspective of stylistics, it only indicates the chaos, the disharmony that followed the partition, and the message that this particular poem is trying to convey. It is compatible, the style of composition of this particular poem is perfectly compatible with its content. Now, the poem begins as a dialogue, or I would say the motif of dialogue is very prominent here because the persona of this particular poem, the speaker of this particular poem, expresses a strong wish to meet Toba Tek Singh at Wagha. Now, he is not wishing to meet him uninvited. In the last stanza of this particular poem, there is a line, Toba Tek Singh's Bishan often calls me to Wagha, saying Opar di, Gurgur di, Moong di, Dal di, Lalten, etc. etc. So Toba Tek Singh's Bishan often calls me to Wagha. It is because he calls him, that's why he wants to meet Bishan. And he also wants to meet the other character who acted like God. Now, if you refer to the short story there, there is this particular passage. Uh, yes. Uh, Here Manto talks about one inmate had got so badly caught up in his India-Pakistan, Pakistan-India rigmarole that one day while sweeping the floor he dropped everything, climbed the nearest tree and installed himself on a branch from which vantage point he spoke for 2 hours on the delicate problem of India and Pakistan. The guards asked him to get down. Instead, he went a branch higher and, when threatened with punishment, declared, I wish to live neither in India nor in Pakistan. I wish to live in this tree. When he was finally persuaded to come down, he began embracing his Sikh and Hindu friends, tears running down his cheeks, fully convinced that they were about to leave him and go to India. Now, here in this poem, the speaker expresses his desire to meet that man also. He says, I quote, I have to search for that madman who would climb a high branch and proclaim that he was God, and only he could decide which village would go to which side. When will he descend from his branch? I have to tell him that the job of dividing and cutting is still in progress, that partition was the first one, some more partitions remain. So, this image of a madman, climbing a branch high on a tree is actually a mockery of the people who are in positions of power and who are toying with the idea of partition without considering the serious consequences of it. And and he's asking, when will he get down? When will he descend from his branch? That means, when will this madman get down to the earth? That means, when will we get the real idea of the ground, what is happening on the ground, the sufferings, the miserable conditions through which people are going, right? He will have an idea. So here the poet only poses a question. There is no definite answer that at this particular hour this person will come down and he will get the real idea about the reality on earth. Now, the speaker also says, I have to meet Tobatek Singh's Vishan at Wagah and tell him about his friend Afzal, and Lahan Singh, Wada Singh, Amrit Behan, all of whom came this side after they were killed, their heads were looted with their belongings on the way. Now, here, Gulzar takes the cue from one particular passage in the short story. I read from the short story. A few days before the exchange was to take place, one of Bishan Singh's Muslim friends from Tobatek Singh came to see him. The first time in 15 years, Bishan Singh looked at him once and turned away, till a guard said to him, This is your old friend Fazal Din. This Fazal Din is referred to here as Afzal. Okay. He has come all the way to meet you. Bishan Singh looked at Fazaldin and began to mumble something. Fazaldin placed his hand on his friend's shoulder and said, I have been meaning to come for some time to bring you news. All your family is well and has gone to India safely. I did what I could to help. Your daughter, Roop Kaur, he hesitated. She is safe too in India. See, when he was talking about his daughter Roop Kaur, he hesitated. And after a pause, he said, "She is safe. She is safe too in India." Bishan Singh kept quiet. Fazal Din continued, Your family wanted me to make sure you were well. Soon you will be moving to India. What can I say except that you should remember me to Bhai Balbir Singh, Bhai Padwa Singh, and Bahin Amrit Kaur. Tell Bhai Balbir Singh that Fazal Din is well by the grace of God. Say, I think of them often and to write to me if there is anything I can do. So this was a conversation, not a conversation actually, it was a one-way conversation. Uh, Azharuddin spoke all these words to Vishan Singh, but there was no reply. And Fazluddin actually tried to assure Vishan Singh about the condition or well-being of his relatives. Now, what actually happened to his relatives is narrated by Gulzar. So that was the view from Lahore. Now, Gulzar is presenting the view from India. Okay, what actually happened to these characters, and what actually happened to the daughter of Vishan Singh. Here I quote from the poem itself. I have to meet Tobatek Singh's vision at Wagah and tell him about his friend Afzal and Lahan Singh, Wada Singh, Amrit Behan, all of whom came this side after they were killed. Their heads were looted with their belongings on the way. It's time to sacrifice Buri. Now, Buri here is, of course, is that girl named uh, Rup Kaur. Okay, Rup Kaur, who was 15 years old at that time. It's time to sacrifice Huri. No one will come for her now, right? And that girl who grew a finger's length every 12 months. Finger's length means this length. Okay. Slowly, she was growing taller. Now she shrinks by part of a finger year by year. So she is now in a tomb. She is now buried, and as a corpse, she is just decaying. So that is the condition. So, and here the poet says, all of whom came this side after they were killed, their heads were looted with their belongings on the way. So here the poet is talking about transportation of corpses, mutilated dead bodies, right? So they came after they were killed. So they were not killed after reaching this place. They were killed before and their bodies reached this place. Now, there is a famous reference, uh, if you read Khushwant Singh's partition novel, Train to Pakistan, there is a reference to a train which arrived at the station of Mano Majra, a border town, which was full of corpses and mutilated dead bodies. Right? So, in a way, Gulzar's poem refers to that particular scene in that particular novel. So herein also is an element of intertextuality that I was trying to point out a few minutes ago. Now I have to tell him that not all lunatics have reached their destinations. So there are still lunatics on both sides. By lunatics, perhaps he is meaning those fanatics who are almost lunatics, those warmongers, those jingoists, those fundamentalists who incite people to commit more violence. So there are lunatics still on both sides. And there are many who still roam around on both sides. Tobatek Singh's Bisan often calls me to Waga saying, Vabardi, Gurgurdi, Mungdi, Daldi, Laltain, the Hindustan, the Pakistan, the Dur Pite Mu. Now, here is a note in that particular book, particular anthology. It says, while the first line of this ambiguous statement from Sadat Hasan Manto's famous short story Tobatek Singh may be dismissed as the gibberish of a madman, though many have taken it as an iconic pronouncement on the madness that was partition. The second line, roughly translated, means, let India and Pakistan be damned. So, this element, let India and Pakistan be damned, is a negation of what we say partition. Actually, the speaker here, in this case Vishan Singh, is not against these two nation states, but he is against the idea of the partition of the unified India into two new states. Okay, so that's why this he makes this statement. Now, on the whole, again, some of the critics have pointed out that this Okurdi, Gurgurdi, Mungdi, Daldi, Laltan is apparently meaningless. It's gibberish. But it has some kind of reference to the boiling of lentils. Mungdi, Daldi, Laltin. That means Mung dal is boiling. So it may be a metaphor for the turmoil, the political turmoil that was prevailing at the time of partition. On the whole, this particular poem complements Togatek Singh's, Manto's Togatek Singh, and presents an alternative view from the other side. And here the author is also at a temporal distance, okay, because Gulzar's poem came out on the occasion of the 70th year of Indian partition, and he says that that partition was the first one, some more partitions remain. Here I have listed some points regarding the anyway. Okay, now the key takeaway from Gulzar's poem is that the partition of the geopolitical territories that began on 17th August 1947 has not yet been complete. Why 17th August? Because on that day, the Boundary Commission fixed the boundaries. Okay, 2 days after the Indian independence. This claim is substantiated by the divisions within our existing societies, continuing inequalities in terms of caste, creed, race, gender, religion, territorial rights, language, and many more. Any discrimination entails partition. That is a very important point. So whenever we make any kind of discrimination, we make a partition. We divide ourselves between us and them, we and they, right? So partition is not limited to the landscape, but also extends to the mindscape. In this context, we may dream of optimistic future that Tagore emphasized in poem number 35 in Gitanjali. Shall we live in this abject condition? Shall we live with all these, you know, uh, what should I say, marginalization or partition or discrimination of minds at our society? Or shall we dream of a better time that is expressed in poem number 35 of Gitanjali? So I'll read out that particular poem, and with that I'll conclude my lecture. The poem is very well known. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary drizzled sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, led my country away. So we want to be in a world where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic worlds. So the partition itself was an attempt to fragment the larger nation into smaller elements. So we want to get past this experience and we want to be in a better world. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nyogi, sir. And that was a great experience to be part of such a fabulous interactive session. Now I will request our Professor Sampa ma'am to come on stage and the volunteers to hand over the memento to our Dr. Nyogi, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And there is a short information that question answer session will be delayed. It will be at the ending of the session because of the crisis of the time. So, okay, by proceeding further, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Professor Pritam Das. Professor Pritam Das, Assistant Professor of English, Deshbandhu Mahavidyalaya Chittoranjan, awarded with Dr. Nava Kishore Hazra Memorial Prize. His area of teaching post-colonialism, post-1950s British literature, literary theory, literary criticism. He also attended as a guest lecturer in Department of English, Vivekananda Mahavidyalaya, Purbo Bardhaman. Lots of achievements in publications. Some are Serving the Other, Buddha as the Christ figure in the light of Asia in December 2023, The Termine, published in January 2023, The Blood Circle, War Cannot Bring Peace, Can Peace Stop the War, in September 2022. Very quickly, I would like to hand over the mic to our respected Professor Pritam Das. All we are delighted for waiting for his lecture session.
Uh, Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to pay my gratitude to the Department of English, the coordinator of this department, Dr. Uh, Orbita Chakraborty, Orbita Di. To special thanks to our Ajoyda, Dr. Ajoy Sengupta, uh, earlier speaker, Dr. Shantanu Niyogi, and আমার সৌমিত্রদা। আমি ওনাকে ডেজিগনেশন দিয়ে বলবো না, আমি আমাদের সবার সৌমিত্রদা। Now, this is a challenge, because I am the third speaker on the same topic. So they have made it easy, vice versa, made it a bit difficult for me to draw your attention on the same topic, same lecture, same lines and all. So this is my first, this is the first time I'm coming here to your college and on this special lecture series, and it's my privilege to be a part of this. And I'm honored to be a part of this lecture series where such esteemed speakers are present. Now, instantly I have to change my thought process because যখন থেকে এসছি আমি ভাবছি আমি কি বলবো ছেলে মেয়েদের, তারা নতুন কিছু শোনার জন্য বসে আছে, কিন্তু যেটাই বলতে চাইছি শান্তনুদা দেখছি সেটাই বলে দিচ্ছে। কালকে অনির্বাণের লেকচারে আই ওয়াজ নট দেয়ার, বাট আমি বুঝতে পারছি যে তোমরা অনেক এনরিচড, ইউ আর সো মাচ এনরিচড আফটার সাচ এনগ্রসিং সেশনস বাই such respected professor of our surrounding colleges. So I just thought and decided to change my way of sharing my understanding and experience on this topic, Toba texting. নামটা অনেকবার বলা হয়েছে, তো আমি যেটা করব, আমি তো বুঝতেই পারছি তোমরা অলরেডি অনেকেই অনেক কিছু জেনে গেছো, মানে শুনতে পেয়েছো। আমি তোমাদের কাছ থেকে কিছু নতুন কিছু শুনবো, বিকজ আই ল্যাক সো মেনি থিংস অ্যাবাউট দিস টপিক, আমি কিছুই জানি না। First, some basic information I would like to go through it rapidly because this is time bound. And this is Sadat Hasan Manto, born in 1912 and passed away in 1955. He was renowned Urdu short story writer, playwright, essayist. The most interesting thing is that he was renowned and simultaneously criticized for his bold portrayals of realistic horrors of partition, mainly partition history, the scars of partition, the causes of partition, the absurdity of partition, and all. He wrote almost or more than 250 short stories like Kholdo, Anda Ghost, Tobatek Singh, which we are going to read once more. Charged with obscenity, admired for fearless realism, and today we are going to see the presentation of horror, presentation of partition through the prism of the lens of such a writer who himself somehow attached or related his own personal feelings and experiences with the readers through the presentation of some beautiful characters. And Vishan Singh, who is the central character or protagonist in this short story as well. So we have already came to know about him a lot. I'm skipping this, and you are already aware of the local story, local legend about Tobatek Singh. I'm not repeating it again. Just for information, Toba means in Punjabi a pond, choto pukur, or water reservoir. Now, Tek Singh, the person, the name Tobatek Singh may sound a bit, uncommon. Toba Tek Singh. Actually, Toba is not his name or not part of the name. Tek Singh was the person, was very kind-hearted, gentle man, saint. He used to serve, used to stand by the passerbys or people, needy people, travelers, by giving water, by serving water, drinking water. Over time, people began calling the area where he used to live, Tobatek Singh, the pond of Tobatek Singh. Now, what it symbolizes, the name. Now, in my college, in my class, what I generally do before I start any text, any poem or any novel, I always focus on the title, because the title is like a hoarding, the title is like a placard which says a lot itself. But here, in case of Tobatek Singh, it's not so much, informative apparently. What might be the interpretation, clarification, explanation, এর মধ্যে কি আছে টোবাটেক সিং, এটা বুঝতে হয়তো আমাদের একটু অসুবিধা হতে পারে, যার সম্বন্ধে আমরা অলরেডি অনেক শুনেছি। What it symbolizes, Tobatek Singh, the person Tobatek Singh, the home and belonging. Now this guy, this person, belonged to a place, served a lot. After that, the place was, remarked by his name. A place of communal harmony before partition. So without any discrimination, without judging any communal identity or any special address, this guy, this person, used to serve, used to help, used to stand by other people. This is the interesting point. And that was before partition, 1947. But after that, the scenario has changed. After partition, we felt apart from each other. A town that, like its namesake, once cared for people of all faiths, but is later reduced to just a name on a divided map. What was the partition of India? You all know that. India, Pakistan, 15th August 1947. Pakistan itself was divided into West and East. Later on, it became Bangladesh in 1971. Now, lots of people migrated from one border to the other side of the border. Over 1 million people were killed. The last point is important. Psychological and social wounds that shaped South Asian literature. Now, what is literature? What do we read literature? We have to understand any writing, any presentation, any composition by any person is not only to be included in the library or in the bookshelf or in any syllabus. It has some particular purpose, particular motto, and particular point of perception. বাংলায় একটা কথা বলি, যেমন ভাবন তেমনি ভুবন, এটা আমি আমার স্টুডেন্টদের মাঝে মাঝে বলে থাকি। Perception matters. Literature or language, which is nothing but play of words to portray the face of our feelings, our experience, emotion, everything. Now, through this literature, this partition literature, which is keenly associated with the dissatisfaction, with the misery, with the problems, crisis, anxiety, everything inbuilt in it. I will coming back to this later on. Now, the text Tobatek Singh, published in 1955, originally in Urdu, later on translated in English by several critics or several people, set in Lahore Mental Asylum. Now, Manto's narrative starts with a satirical, slightly humorous tone. If you go through the text, I will directly quote from the texts gradually. But before that, I'm just going through these points because I'm not going to explain this again repeatedly. Humorous tone, even as it hints at the deep tragedy and madness of partition. The question arises here, madness of partition. And the setting or the place, the location is an asylum in Lahore Mental Asylum, Pagla Garant. The asylum filled with insane people, soon turns into a parody of the so-called sane world outside. This is the binary. Who are inside the asylum, who are outside the asylum, and who are actually insane. Now, if you consider the text, consider the context, you will understand gradually with the progress of the poem or the short story that insanity is not defined or should not be defined by the physical or mental condition of a person, or we should not tag the word insane to somebody who is not behaving following the parameters we have set for the benefits of ourselves. Then who are insane actually? Who are sane people? Vice versa. To understand this, you have to consider the story, the dialogues, and the scripts of these two texts. I thought to uh, discuss the text, but as it is being, you know, discussed already with you, I'm not going to the textual analysis. I just quote some points and excerpts from that later on. Now the story of inmates being exchanged between India and Pakistan. This is the main, you know, uh, historical background and the beginning of the story. Central figure, Bishan Singh, you all know him, a Sikh inmate obsessed with his hometown Tobatek Singh. News of asylum inmate exchange spreads. Now, I would like to ask you one thing. What is partition? মানে তোমরা এখনো অবধি partition বলতে কি বুঝেছো? Forget about 1947 partition of India, Pakistan to different nations on the basis of religion, communal violence, politics, etc., etc. What is the dictionary meaning of partition? Anybody of you? Any student? Simple dictionary meaning of partition.
Separation.
Dictionary meaning of partition, separation. Okay. বাংলা মানে কি এটা? হ্যাঁ? ভাগ। বিভাজন। কে বললো? খুব ভালো। বিভাজন, ভাগ, separation, segregation. The partition is not mandatorily any or should not be any geographical, provincial or historical event or concept. This is, again I say, a perception. এখানে এমন কেউ আছে যার বাড়ির চারপাশে দেওয়াল দেওয়া নেই, মানে বাউন্ডারি দেওয়া নেই? Is there anybody? Open house? তোর বাড়ির চারপাশে প্রাচীর নেই, দেওয়াল নেই? Thank you very much. একমাত্র ওরাই রয়েছে, ওই দুজন বোধহয়, এই তোমাদের কোন সেমিস্টার? সেম 6। হ্যাঁ? হ্যাঁ, তোমরা ফ্ল্যাটে থাকো না তো, তাহলে বাউন্ডারি দেওয়ার দরকারই পড়বে না। তো ওদের বাড়ির চারিদিকে কোনো ওয়াল নেই, মানে ওয়াল মানে আমি বলছি যেটা বাউন্ডারি ওয়াল। হ্যাঁ, বাকিদের সবার বাড়িতে রয়েছে, আমার বাড়িতেও রয়েছে। তো partition is not always between India or Pakistan or any other countries. Partition is inside us. I feel like this. This is my personal feeling. Partition is always psychological. First, it is psychological, then it is provincial, geographical, or whatever you can say, historical. So if you want to understand partition or any kind of vibhajan, you have to understand the mentality of a human being, a person who is talking about this, talking on this topic partition. Bishan Singh, the central character or the protagonist of this short story, is a common human being, but portrayed as a madman, an insane. And since last 15 years before this partition, was in as a convict in that Lahore asylum. Suddenly, like other inmates of that asylum comes to know about this decision made by two governments or two countries that, like other people, common human being, quote unquote, well human being, physically and mentally well human being, these insane people will also be exchanged. পাগলদেরও ছাড়া হবে, তাদেরকেও এক দেশ থেকে আরেক দেশে নিয়ে যেতে হবে। কিভাবে? অন দ্য বেসিস অফ রিলিজিয়ন। হিন্দুদের এবং শিখদের কোথায় পাঠাতে হবে? ইন্ডিয়ায় পাঠাতে হবে। আর যারা মুসলিম তাদের পাকিস্তানে পাঠাতে হবে। The question is, an insane man or woman who has lost his mind, has no association with this mundane world, no association with the social turmoil. Is it possible for him or her to understand the gravity of partition that we are trying to impose, trying to highlight on the name of exchange or division? Is it possible? Probably the answer is no. It's not possible. But it is going to happen. This is ironical. This is, alarming, and this is humorous. This is hilarious that we are going to exchange people from one side to the other on the basis of religion, and we are trying to make such people convinced about this who do not know anything about it, do not understand about it, and do not bother about it. কিচ্ছু এসে যায়, তারা কোথায় আছে, কোথায় যাবে, কেন যাবে, কিচ্ছু এসে যায়। Now, Vision Singh is one of them. I would like to quote from the short story by Manto here, the first para. A couple of years after the partition of the country, it occurred to the respective governments of India and Pakistan that inmates of lunatic asylums like prisoners should also be exchanged. So this is the news. This is the announcement. This is the decision. It is going to be occurred with the inmates, convicts, or prisoners, and the mad people. Muslim lunatics in India should be transferred to Pakistan, and Hindu and Sikh lunatics in Pakistani asylums should be sent to India. This is the basic incident. This is the base incident of this story. কাঁটাতারের এপার থেকে ওপারে নিয়ে যাওয়া হবে, এমনটা নয় যে তাদেরকে কাঁটাতার থেকে বা ওই পাগলাগারদ থেকে বা পাগলাগারদের চার দেওয়াল থেকে বাইরে নিয়ে গিয়ে তাদের ভরা হবে না, এক খাঁচা থেকে আর এক খাঁচায় ভরা হবে। সমস্যাটা হচ্ছে they don't have the idea of this exchange. I give you an example. সবাইকেই ধরো, আমরা প্রত্যেকের বাড়িতে আসি, সেটা কোন একটা ডিস্ট্রিক্টে পড়ে, কোন একটা সাব ডিভিশনে পড়ে, কোন একটা স্টেটে পড়ে। একদিন রাত্রে ঘুমোতে গেলাম, অল অফ আ সাডেন তার পরের দিন শুনলাম যে আমাকে বাড়ি ছেড়ে চলে গেল। কেন? কারণ আমি ইন্ডিয়ান। এই যে প্রভিন্সটা, এই যে জায়গাটা, এতদিন জানতাম এটা আমার বাবার বা দাদুর বা আমার নিজের, কিন্তু কাল এটা আজ আমার এটা নয়, আমাকে এখান থেকে সরে যেতে হবে। What would be our first reaction? কি হবে? তুমি পাগল নও, আমিও পাগল নই। পাগল না হলেও আমাদের ফার্স্ট রিয়াকশনটা কি? What would be our first reaction after hearing such announcement, decision? Would be happy? পাকিস্তান ঘুরতে পারবো, পাকিস্তান যেতে পারবো? No. This is humorous. প্রশ্ন হবে, প্রথম প্রশ্ন, আমরা কেন যাব? যেতে পারি, তবে কেন যাব? কথাটা হচ্ছে এটা, Vision Singh is not aware of such things. যেতে পারি তবে কেন যাব? He is not so much able to think the depth of this situation. common human being, but now lost everything, unaware of such political upheavals. But the question, why am I going to leave this place where I have been for 15 years, still lingering in his mind? তার মতো মানুষের কাছেও এই চিন্তাটা বারবার তার কাছে আসছে যে আমি কেন যাব, কোথায় যাব, আমি তো এখানেই ছিলাম। He asks so many people, so many times. Nobody can answer this properly. কেউ উত্তর দিতে পারছে না। সমস্যা আরো একটা, সুস্থ সাধারণ মানুষকে ভুলভাল বোঝানো যায়, পাগলকে বোঝানো সম্ভব, সে তো জানেই না, তাকে বোঝানোর অপশন আমাদের কাছে নেই। I will like to quote again from the text. Not all inmates were mad. Some were perfectly normal, except that they were murderers. To spare them hangman's noose, their families had managed to get them committed after bribing officials down the line. They probably had a vague idea why India was being divided and what Pakistan was. But as for the present situation, they were equally clueless. I would focus on this word, clueless. So I'm talking about the normal people who are inside the asylum with other mentally ill people by some tricks and techniques to escape the noose of hangman, to escape the legal punishment, etc., because they have committed some criminal offense. তারাও এই অ্যাসাইলামের মধ্যে আছে। Even when they know about this partition, this exchange, this shifting, transition, movement, they become confused. They become clueless. They can't understand or decide what to do now. তো বিশন সিং তো অনেক পরের ব্যাপার, বিশন সিং তো অলরেডি সব ভুলে বসে আছে। যারা সুস্থ মানুষ, আমাদের চোখে কোট আন কোট, আগেন আই রিপিট, সুস্থ মানুষ যারা পরিষ্কারভাবে দেখতে পাচ্ছে কি হতে চলেছে, তারাও হঠাৎ করে কনফিউজড হয়ে যাচ্ছে। So this is the severe impact of sudden decision of partition, exchange of inmates from Pakistan to India and India to Pakistan. Now, I have already shared this text to অজয় দা। আমি গতকাল বা গত পরশু পাঠিয়েছিলাম, আমি জানি তোমরা এটা পেয়েছো কিনা। যদি হাতে থাকতো খুব সুবিধা হতো, তোমরা বুঝতে পারতে আমি কোন জায়গাটা থেকে পড়ছি। তো again I read out from that story. There was another inmate, a Sikh Bishan Singh, who had been confined for the last 15 years. How many years? 15 years. Homely atmosphere, as if it was his home. Whenever he spoke, it was the same mysterious gibberish. Professor Niyogi already explained this uttering of Bishan Singh. Upurti, Gurgurti, Annexti, Bay, Diana, the moon, the gulf of the Laltain. I'm not going to the explanation right now. I will coming back to it later on. Gerd said he had not slept a wink in 15 years. Occasionally, he could be observed leaning against a wall, but the rest of the time he was always to be found standing. Madness. তিনি ঘুমোতেন 15 বছর ধরে। It is being said that since last 15 years he is sleepless. But I would like to give you a point here. Manto very carefully tried to portray a knot. Okay, here with the help of this character, Bishan Singh. sleepless for the word sleepless. The word is any physical condition or due to mental instability. Means what I want to say here, sleepless, he is mad, insane, not normal, all okay. But using this particular word sleepless after such announcement, such decision is very interesting. Why is he sleepless? Due to his mental instability, abnormality, or something else. I think this is another of uh, whip of irony, satire, Mantu used here to give you or to help you grasp the situation, the gravity of the situation. He directly or indirectly castigate all of us by using such phrase and words throughout the text. I will mark them one by one. He could be observed, okay, because of this, his legs were permanently swollen, something that did not appear to bother him. Recently, he had started to listen carefully to discussions. Okay, I skip a little bit. Of late, however, the government of Pakistan had been replaced by the government of Tobatek Singh, a small town in the Punjab, which was his home. Okay. Meanwhile, the exchange arrangements were rapidly being finalized. Lists of lunatics from the two sides had been exchanged between the governments and the date of transfer fixed. So finally, the day has been fixed on which day they are going to be shifted from India, Pakistan, and Pakistan to India. On a cold winter evening, listen very carefully, on a cold winter evening, buses full of Hindu and Sikh lunatics, accompanied by armed police and officials, began moving out of the Lahore asylum towards Wagha. I hope you have heard about this Wagha border. You know? Okay. The dividing line between India and Pakistan. Senior officials from the two sides in charge of exchange arrangements met, signed documents, and the transfer got underway. The main problem is going to be unveiled now. It was quite a job, what I was discussing a few minutes back. Quite a job getting the men out of the buses and handling them over to officials, because I have said they all are quote unquote abnormal, mentally unstable as per our perception. আমাদের ভাবনায় তারা অসুস্থ, তারা স্বাভাবিক নয়। তো তাদেরকে এই জায়গা থেকে সরিয়ে নিয়ে যাওয়াটা একটা চ্যালেঞ্জ। তারা যেতে চাইছে না। The question is, are they abnormal or unstable, or the other peoples who are trying to sift them, these innocent, common human beings, common native places? Some just refuse to live. কিছু কিছু জন একেবারেই যেতে চায় না, গো ধরে বসে থাকে, যাব না, তাদেরকে নিয়ে যাওয়া সম্ভব নয় একমাত্র জোর করে তুলে নিয়ে না যাওয়া ছাড়া। Those who were persuaded to do so began to run pell-mell in every direction. Some were stark naked. All efforts to get them to cover themselves had failed because they couldn't be kept from tearing off their garments. Some were shouting abuse or singing. Others were weeping bitterly. Many fights broke out. Chaos, extreme chaos, extremely pathetic condition happened over there. All of them feeling helpless to control those people who are going to be exchanged between these two countries. There is no way out. They are clueless. Especially this man, Bishan Singh. Okay, he is not ready to listen, not ready to understand anything from them, any word from them. Anything couldn't, console, okay, convince him. In short, complete confusion prevailed. So extreme chaos and tension that arise during the time of exchange. Female lunatics were also be exchanged and they were even noisier. It was bitterly cold. Now when Bishan Singh was brought out and asked to give his name so that it could be recorded in a register, he asked the official behind the desk, where is Tobatek Singh? In India or Pakistan? যাবো তো ঠিকই, কিন্তু আমি তো টোবাতেক সিং এ ছিলাম। The native place, সেটা কোথায়? সেটা ইন্ডিয়ায় নাকি পাকিস্তান? Natural question. And he should ask. After 50 or 15 years, বা ওই যে বললাম প্রথমে, ধরো রাত্রিবেলা ঘুমোলে পরের দিন সকালে শুনলে তোমাকে বাড়ি ছাড়তে হবে, তোমার প্রথম প্রশ্ন কি হবে? কেন যাব? তারপরের প্রশ্ন হবে কোথায় যাব? এখানেও তাই, the same question is being repeated, asked by this guy. Pakistan, he answered with a vulgar laugh. Bishan Singh tried to run but was overpowered by the Pakistani guards who tried to push him across the dividing line towards India. However, he would not move. So rigid to be controlled. This is Tobatek Singh, he announced. Upardi, Gurgurdi, Annexdi, etc., etc. Now, just the last of the end of this story, just before sunrise, Bishan Singh, the man who had stood on his legs for 15 years, screamed, and as officials from the two sides rushed towards him, he collapsed to the ground. There, the ending part of this story is enough to understand the theme, the context, and the historical importance of this story, or the mastery of Manipur. It says there, behind the barbed wire মানে জানো? কাঁটা তার। আমরা সবাই কোনো না কোনো মুভিতে বা ইতিহাসের পাতায় এই কাঁটা তারের ছবি দেখেছি, কাঁটা তারের গল্প শুনেছি, এখন তো অনেক মুভি ওয়েব সিরিজে এই কাঁটা তার বারবার ফিরে আসে। সেই কাঁটা তার এর এক সাইডে, on one side lay India, and behind more barbed wire on the other side lay Pakistan. In between, on a bit of earth which had no name, lay Tobatek Singh. Now, even though the problem is, even though Tobatek Singh was Bishan Singh was insane, he could grasp the absurdity of partition, the decision, while we, the so-called sane people, could not. That is the irony. Now, point is, we are reading partition literature, we are reading Tobatek Singh, we are reading Gulzar in such a scenario. তোমরা প্রত্যেকেই জানো, I hope you are aware about the word mock drill. কালকে হয়েছে না? জানি না তোমাদের কলেজে মক ড্রিল করানো হয়েছে কিনা, কিন্তু অনেক জায়গাতেই হয়েছে। মক ড্রিলের সম্বন্ধে আমরা শুনেছি, নিউজ চ্যানেল, নিউজ পেপার, এটসেট্রা এটসেট্রা। তো এখন এমন একটা পরিস্থিতি চলছে যে সময় আমার মনে হয় এই পার্টিশন লিটারেচার নিয়ে পড়াটা কোইনসিডেন্টালি রেলেভেন্ট হয়ে উঠেছে। Why should read partition literature? Why should read Manto, Gulzar, or Amrita Pritam, or so many, Khushwant Singh? কেন পড়বো? তার উত্তর কিন্তু আমরা নিজেরাই বুঝতে পারছি। Why should we read? Why should we know the cause and effect of partition? There are so many things to say here, but I would like to be in those areas which are important for your understanding and obviously for your syllabus. Now, major themes of this text, this Toba text thing. Madness of partition. I'm coming back to it later on. Displacement and identity crisis. Can anybody explain the word identity crisis?
Macon. Macon.
Macon, yes. Macon. Bakira, identity crisis কখনো feel করেছো? Have you ever felt any such identity crisis? আবারও জানতে চাইছি এটার বাংলা মানেটা কি হবে? আইডেন্টিটি ক্রাইসিসের বাংলা মানে কি হবে? অস্তিত্বের সংকট। ভেরি গুড, তোমরা অনেক বেশি জানো। সত্যি মানে দিস ইজ মার্ভেলাস, আই এম ইমপ্রেসড। অস্তিত্বের সংকট সেটা কি জিনিস? সেটা কি জিনিস? কে একবার হাত তোলো, বুঝতে পারছি না কে বলছে, হ্যাঁ বলো। Loss of individuality, yes. Anything else you would like to add? Anybody else? Identity crisis. Identity card নয়, identity crisis. আচ্ছা, আইডেন্টিটি কার্ড হারিয়ে গেলে কি হয়? ধরো কলেজের একটা আইডেন্টিটি কার্ড আছে, অজয় বাবু বলে দিলেন, উত্তেজি বলে দিলেন, কাল সবাই আই কার্ড ঝুলিয়ে কলেজ আসবে, একজন ভুলে গেল, তা তখন কি মনে হয়? এই রে, স্যার ঢুকতে দেবেন তো ন্যাকের সময়? Because without that piece of what I say token identity, you are nothing. তুমি বলছো স্যার আমি তো 3 বছর ধরে এখানে পড়ছি, একদিন আই কার্ড আনতে ভুলে গেলাম, আপনি বলছেন মে গন অর তুম গন, হ্যাঁ? So this is identity crisis. So তুমি একটা ছোট্ট এক্সাম্পল থেকে বুঝতে পারছো যে the concept of identity is so fragile, so momentary. We need not go to any deeper sense of this. So Vishan Singh, who was a part of that Tobatek Singh, that place, suddenly being informed that you have to leave this. You have to, leave this place forever. What would be his reaction? And the reaction is in front of us, and that is quite natural. আমরা যদি তার জায়গায় থাকতাম, আমাদের মাথাতেও ওই রকম বাঁধ ভেঙে পড়তো বা আকাশ ভেঙে পড়তো। যদিও আমাদের সেই সেন্সটা আছে, তার তো সেই সেন্সও নেই। শুধু কি আছে? দ্যাট নেম, টোবাটেক সিং। সে আর কিচ্ছু জানে না। সে শুনে এসছে, জেনে এসছে, হি ইজ হ্যাবিচুয়েটেড উইথ দ্যাট নেম, টোবাটেক সিং, নাথিং এলস। But even after losing everything, losing every sense, identity, address, connection, belongings, he still remembers his root. Now what we are doing here, we are derooting them. We are terminating them. We are cutting apart those souls, minds, from their attachment, from their associations, from their belongings, near and dear ones. So this is the second point here, political absurdity. Absurdity meaning meaninglessness. তারপর মানেই হয়, yes, absurdity meaning which is meaningless. Do you agree with me or us that this partition is meaningless, or it has some meaning or importance? No? তাহলে আমরা আজকেই আমাদের বাড়ির চারপাশে যে সারাউন্ডিং ওয়ালস গুলো আছে সেগুলো ভেঙে ফেলবো। Partition is not required to mention who we are and where we are. Okay? Symbolism of madness and humanity. Nationalism versus humanism. Before a few days, after this terrorist attack in Kashmir, we all came to know that there were some decisions made by our government that those people living in India but belongs to Pakistan should sit immediately. Ours is not important, but yes, means with immediate effect, চলে যেতে হবে। Okay, so the same situation, same scenario, same announcement, and same heartbreaking, condition appears here as well. So, what is important, nationalism or humanism? Should we treat them as people from other state, other country, other communal identity, or we should treat them from humanitarian ground, from our sympathetic concern? That is the question. Symbolism in the story, mental asylum, which stands for society's madness during partition. Bishan Singh, innocent man caught in this political turmoil. No man's land, statelessness, lost identity. ওই যে when you lose the identity card, তোমার যে সিচুয়েশনটা হয়, no man's land, মানে তুমি কারোর নয়, কলেজেরও নাও বা বাইরের কোনো টিচারেরও নাও, কারোর নয়। Novatek Singh lost homeland and unbroken spirit. Now, famous lines from this text. There, I have already read this from the original text. This is the most iconic line from the story. It appears towards the end when Bishan Singh is in no man's land. And what is no man's land? Do you know the concept of no man's land? I forgot to mention it.
No man's land is where the land does not belong to Pakistan or India.
No, no man's land meaning again what? No, I am not going to that deeper meaning of this phrase. I am just asking that I am always habituated with dictionary meaning of the word first, then I try to impose the deeper meaning. So, no man's land এর বাংলা মানে কি হবে? হ্যাঁ? কারোর নয়। No man's land. No man's land means anybody cannot claim that this place belong to me. You should not live here, or you should not live from here. Because that is the concept of no man's land. সেটা কোথায় থাকে? In between two borders. Wagah border. We just have referred to Wagah border. So between India and Pakistan. Okay. And at the end of this story, we see Bishan Singh collapses where? In no man's land. And that is why those people responsible for this, or those officials responsible for this exchange, could not force him. And he took his last breath in no man's land. So this is the message from Manto, that we could not control, we could not, identify, we could not, instruct somebody to leave, to order, or to what I say, deprive them without their consent. We all are here, and we should be here forever. আমরা সবাই রাজা, আমাদের রাজত্বে সেরকমই এই সব কিছু যা কিছু আমাদের সামনে রয়েছে, এগুলো আমাদের সবার। ম্যাপ, লাইন, geographical definitions, political decisions, make this simple natural incidents critical, complex, and absurd. After 15 August, again from the text, no one knew where Hindustan was and where Pakistan was. Even those who were well informed were now confused. A line early in the story highlighting the chaos, dislocation, uncertainty, confusion, displacement, trauma, anxiety. Even people in position of authority could not clearly explain the new boundaries to the asylum inmates. A metaphor for the entire population's confusion. Now, this is another one. Upperdi, Gurgurdi, Annexdi, Vediana, Di, Mundi, Dalok, Tovatexi. You may ask me, sir, what is the meaning of this sentence? I don't know. This is Bishan Singh's signature jibari, signature dialogue, which he repeats so many times throughout the text, throughout his, delivery. Now, if you try to find out the, again, paraphrasing meaning, it would be quite impossible for us. What was his actual intention to mean through these lines, but probably after going through the whole story, we can understand, or we can, at least guess this seems to be nonsensical, but it has more sense over some, theoretical, some serious, important decisions made by us, made by the sane people, good people, powerful people. Okay, this is more meaningful. This becomes more meaningful over all those lines and decisions. It seems meaningless, but it sounds full of so many meanings. It expresses his frustration, anxiety, and longing for home. It becomes a symbol of the madness of partition itself. Contemporary relevance, displacement crisis still persist globally. We cannot deny this. Issues of religious, ethnic, regional divides, we are going through it. Stateless refugees in conflict zones, partition narratives vital for South Asia's identity discourse. Tobatek Singh is a timeless protest against political cruelty. Manto's humanistic voice echoes beyond partition. Literature as witness to unspeakable tragedies, relevance continues in global conflicts. Now, দাদা আমি একটা রিকোয়েস্ট করবো, আপনি ইউটিউবে এসে একটা জাস্ট সার্চ করুন, আমি বলে দিচ্ছি। I'd like to give you a video clipping. যদিও শান্তনু স্যার তোমাদের অরিজিনাল গুলজারের পোয়েমটা আমি শিফট করছি গুলজারের অরিজিনাল পোয়েমটা তোমাদের পড়ে শুনিয়েছেন। আমি তোমাদের গুলজারের নিজের কণ্ঠে তার কবিতাটা একবার শোনানোর চেষ্টা করব। আমি আবারও বলছি, আমি যেভাবে পড়াবো ভেবেছিলাম এখানে পড়াতে পারছি না, বিকজ সব বলা হয়ে গেছে, আমার বলার কিছু বাকি নেই, ইনস্ট্যান্টলি আমাকে চেঞ্জ করতে হচ্ছে। আপনি তোমাদের সাউন্ডটা বাড়িয়ে দিন প্লিজ, পে ইউর অ্যাটেনশন।
मंटो की कहानी सबने पढ़ी है, टोबा टेक सिंह। और वो जो पार्टीशन जिस वक्त तकसीम हुई है, तो उधर के पागल खाने भी बांटे जाएं, वहाँ के पागल इधर भेजे जाएं, यहाँ के पागल उन्हें तकसीम कर दिया जाए, और उनमें वो जो एक शाह के ऊपर चढ़ के बताता रहता है कि नहीं ये गांव किस तरफ जाएगा, हम बताएंगे। भेजे जाएं, यहाँ के पागल उन्हें तकसीम कर दिया जाए, और उनमें वो जो एक शाह के ऊपर चढ़ के बताता रहता है कि नहीं ये गांव किस तरफ जाएगा, हम बताएंगे, क्योंकि हम अल्लाह ताला हैं। और फिर टोबा टेक सिंह का वहाँ पे आना, याद होगी कहानी। पर उसमें जो मज़ेदार बात थी, वो जो बंटो एक कमाल की लैंग्वेज उसके साथ इस्तेमाल करते हैं, उड़ दी गुड़ गुड़ दी मूंग दी दाल दी लौट है, वो एक बड़ी ख़ास बात थी। और उनका आखिरी जुमला कहानी का, मुझे वाघा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले मिशन से जाके मिलना है। मुझे वाघा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले मिशन से जाके मिलना है, सुना है वो अभी तक सूजे पैरों पर खड़ा है जिस जगह मंटो ने छोड़ा था। मुझे वाघा पे टोबा टेक सिंह वाले मिशन से जाके मिलना है, सुना है वो अभी तक सूजे पैरों पर खड़ा है जिस जगह मंटो ने छोड़ा था। पता लेना है उस पागल का, ऊंची डाल पे चढ़ के जो कहता था खुदा है वो, उसी को फैसला करना है किसका गांव किस हिस्से में जाएगा। वो कब उतरेगा अपनी डाल से, उसको बताना है। अभी कुछ और भी दिल हैं कि जिनको बांटने का काटने का काम जारी है, वो बंटवारा तो पहला था। वो कब उतरेगा अपनी डाल से, उसको बताना है। अभी कुछ और भी दिल हैं कि जिनको बांटने का काटने का काम जारी है। वो बंटवारा तो पहले था, अभी कुछ और बंटवारे हैं बाकी हैं। मुझे बागा पिटोबा टेक सिंह वाले मिशन से जाके मिलना है, खबर देनी है उसके दोस्त अफजल को। वो लैना सिंह, वो धावा सिंह, वो पैन अमृत, वो सारे कत्ल होकर इस तरफ आए थे। ये सारे जिनका वो जिक्र करता है साने में। मुझे वाघा पिटोबा टेक सिंह वाले मिशन से जाके मिलना है, खबर देनी है उसको, खबर देनी है उसके दोस्त अफजल को। वो लैना सिंह, वो धावा सिंह, वो पैन अमृत, वो सारे कत्ल होकर इस तरफ आए थे। उनकी गर्दनें सामान ही में लुट गई पीछे। जबा कर दे वो पूरी, अब कोई लेने ना आएगा। जबा कर दे वो पूरी, अब कोई लेने ना आएगा। वो लड़की एक उंगली जो बड़ी होती थी हर 12 महीनों में, उसमें उसकी बहन अफजल, उसकी बेटी अफजल जो खबर ला के देता है जिस लड़की की, तो बड़ी होती जा रही है एक एक उंगली हर साल। वो लड़की एक उंगली जो बड़ी होती थी हर 12 महीनों में, वो अब हर एक बरस एक पोटा पोटा घटती रहती है। वो लड़की एक उंगली जो बड़ी होती थी हर 12 महीनों में, वो अब हर एक बरस एक पोटा पोटा घटती रहती है। बताना है कि सब पागल अभी पहुंचे नहीं अपने ठिकानों पर। बहुत से उस तरफ हैं और बहुत से इस तरफ भी हैं। बताना है कि सब पागल अभी पहुंचे नहीं अपने ठिकानों पर। बहुत से उस तरफ हैं और बहुत से इस तरफ भी हैं। मुझे वागा पिटोबा टेक सिंह वाला मिशन अक्सर यही कह के बुलाता है, ऊपर दी गुड़ गुड़ दी मूंग दी दाल दी लालटेन ते हिंदुस्तान दे पाकिस्तान दी दुर फिटे में।
So, Gulzar, Sampuran Singh Alra. Actually, Gulzar, the name Gulzar, he adopted this name, and he started to, he is a lyricist, poet. In 2018, he directed and produced a short film. The name of the film was Manto Ki Kahaniyan, and the character was being played by Pankaj Kapoor as Vishan Singh, whose powerful performance captured the character's madness and pain beautifully. Now, why is this special? Gulzar's own life experiences mirror those of countless people like Vishan Singh. The film added Gulzar's signature poetic sensitivity to Manto's stark realism, and it evoked empathy and historical memory in younger audiences who were not there at the time of partition but carry its echoes. I'm coming back to personal connection between Manto and Vishan Singh. The question maybe, is there any personal connection between Manto and Vishan Singh? I hope some of us would say yes. To understand this, we should know a little bit about the autobiographical elements of Manto before we go to this discussion. Manto, originally from Ludhiana, now in India, was deeply attached to Bombay. He came to Bombay for his career. He became a script writer. Then suddenly he moved to Delhi for some particular reason. Again came back to Bombay. But after partition in 1947, he permanently moved to Pakistan. Okay, so this shift, quick shift from one place to another, one nation to another, from the place he mentally belonged to, and the place he uh, he is by his relation differs. He was torn between into these two lands. He became psychologically, mentally depressed after this transformation, after this transition, shift, movement. So shared experience of displacement happened with both these people, Manto and Vishen Singh. The second connection, similarity between these two is psychological struggles. We already know Manto was being praised by so many people and simultaneously criticized by so many people for some particular obscene portrayals of the bitter reality of partition, the horrific picture of partition. Okay, the trauma of partition and his alienation from Bombay's cultural life left him emotionally fragmented. তাকে চলে যেতে হলো শুধুমাত্র এই ডিসিশনের জন্য that made a psychological scar inside him. Third connection, Manto's critique of political absurdity. Like when Vishen Singh is unable to understand this present situation when he is being told to move from this asylum to another, the same political absurdity was being discussed by Manto, was being felt by Manto in his own life or own existence. The both are in the same line. Mental, political absurdity. And the last, no man's land symbolism. The story is ending with Vishen Singh dying in no man's land, belonging to neither India nor Pakistan. Reflects Manto's own emotional and cultural exile. Okay? Though he physically migrated, Manto never felt truly at home in Pakistan and often longed for the artistic, realistic atmosphere of pre-partition Bombay. So, উনি যদিও শেষে পাকিস্তান গেছিলেন, চলে গেছিলেন, ওনার আত্মিক সম্পর্কটা ইন্ডিয়ার সাথে বা বম্বের সাথে রয়ে গেছে। সেই যে আত্মার টান, আত্মিক সম্পর্ক, আত্মিক যোগাযোগ, সেটা আমরা কোনোভাবেই তাদের থেকে আলাদা করতে পারছি না, যেমনটা তোবাতেক সিং এর সাথে বা ভিশন সিং এর সাথে আমরা পারি। The word Tobatek Singh, the place Tobatek Singh, the village Tobatek Singh remains with that guy character till the last breath or last moment of his life. So this is the irony, this is the message from Manto. So while Vishen Singh is a fictional character, he is also a symbolic extension of Manto's personal grief, confusion, and dissent against a senselessly divided world, which makes no sense, no meaning, no importance. Rather, it is the root of all problems, all difficulties, all crises, anxieties. The character's refusal to accept arbitrary labels and his longing for home mirror Manto's own inner turmoil and humanistic outlook. He always, intended to go back to the root, to the place where he flourished as a writer, as a scriptwriter, and as a human being, as an identity. But people forced him, situation forced him, made him bound to go back to that place where he never thought to. Okay? Now, I think I'm almost at the end of my presentation, and I would like to conclude by referring to some beautiful but meaningful articulations from other writers or other partition literature or partition text. This is from this Tobatek Singh, which says, there behind barbed wires was India, here behind barbed wires was Pakistan, in between on a piece of land that had no name lay Tobatek Singh. Second one is from Train to Pakistan by Kushwant Singh. The fact is, both sides killed, both shot and stabbed and speared and clubbed, both raped. Both means from both the sides of the borders. So the partition, the separation made no discrimination. Okay. Third one is Amrita Pritam's Aj Akhan Waris Sanu. Today I call out to Waris Sa, partition poem. She says, today I call Waris Sa, speak from your grave and turn to the next page of the book of love and record the next tragedy of Punjab. So here he mourns the death of love and humanity in Punjab during partition, invoking the 18th century poet Waris Shah. The next is from Vishan Sani Tamas. He says, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, it was not communities who fought. Then it was men who had lost their minds, lunatics. Actually, they were the original lunatics. It was men who had lost their minds, possessed by the devil of hatred. Not the Hindus, not the Muslims, not the Sikhs. Okay? Last one is from Intizar Hussein's Basti. He says, when the land was divided, it was not just the geography that was torn. শুধু ম্যাপে যে দাগ দেওয়া হলো, ম্যাপটাকে বিভক্ত করা হলো তা না, it was hearts, H-E-A-R-T-S, hearts, homes, memories, and centuries of living together. So what did partition do? That was torn. So it destroyed centuries of shared culture, huge memories, attachments, associations, belongings, and past old days. So thank you for giving your attention. We are coming back to the questionnaire session after the last session by Professor Soumitra. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts and experiences and providing such an informative interaction session, and also to clear our doubts. Now I would like to call Professor Suchetna ma'am to honoring Professor Pritam Das. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Last but not the least, I would like to introduce our third speaker of Day 2 lecture series on partition, Professor Soumitra Roy. Associated Professor at Kazi Nazrul Islam Mahavidyalaya, Purulia, is a respected name in post-colonial film and cultural studies. His academic influence extends far beyond his home institution with engagement at multiple universities and colleges. He is an accomplished editor and author with notable recent contributions including co-edited volume from Routledge and an upcoming publication from Cambridge University Press. His lectures on cinema, literature and cultural discourse have been enriched many institutions across West Bengal. And by this, I would like to hand over the mic to our Professor Soumitra Roy. Sir, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Second term. ওইখানে আছে আপনার।
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I know you've been hearing everything, both versions of Toba Take Sing for quite some time now. So before I begin my formal presentation, the first thing that I wish to say, thank you so much, Department of English, ASANSOL Girls College. Thank you so much, the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, ASANSOL Girls College, for inviting me once over again. I've known people for a long time over here. I've told this some weeks ago, I suppose, when I came over for the poetry reading session. But this session is a little special for me. In 5 months' time, Shantanu Yogi, Ajay Sengupta and I will be celebrating 33 years of togetherness. Okay, 33 years. We have moved at various parts across West Bengal. Ajay was at Raghunathpur. I was a school teacher at that point of time. Then a few months later, I joined my college. Shantanu came in and went out of a college, went back to a school, then joined Raniganj Girls College. But in these 33 years, we have seen enough, and we have seen how academia has changed. And one of the things as we have grown older is that we have treasured the levels of acceptance in academia that we have received. The faces change, the generations change, but our levels of acceptance we treasure with gratitude. When I first came to ASANSOL Girls College, Orpita wasn't there. It was the time when vast masters were there. And then fresh faces came through, those 3 young ladies over there, Shampa somewhere, she's gone away perhaps. Okay, so it's always a matter of privilege when one considers these opportunities not to show off but to interact with people. The presentations are a little bit incidental also, in a sense. Now, before I begin talking on configuring partition and contextualizing trauma in Ice Candy Man, Bapsis it was no. I will ask you all, young people, which are the 2 subjects in school that you hated the most? History. Mathematics. Anyone who has studied English has hated mathematics. That is a given. Anything else? Everyone. That is why we studied English literature. Okay, it was simply not good enough. Therefore we hate it. History is a common thing. And secondly, I suppose, it was geography. Very strange. Because I'm telling you this thing because, in my very humble opinion, we were taught on history, never history. And we were never allowed to locate things in geography. Our teachers told where those locations lay. But since the time I've come over to what we call teaching, and the practice of literature, and I've been doing this for now 25 years plus at college level. I've realized that you cannot move forward without those two subjects. You cannot locate a text if you do not know the time and you do not know the place. Therefore, when we start talking partition, our first instinct should be, where do you begin in terms of time? Because without that location of time, you cannot contextualize a text. And where do you locate the people about whom you're talking about in the text? The place. Now, very sadly, whether you study post-colonial literature, or you study partition literature, or you study travel literature, or whatever has been dumped on you through the study of English literature, we hardly ever tell our children where are things happening. We teach history of literature at some point of time, but we don't show it on the map. Isn't it so? So we are, in the end, making things by rote. মুখস্থ করো, জেনে নাও, লিখে দিয়ে চলে এসো. Years later, when you are on the other side, you will be on the other side at some point of time. Your first challenge is, where do I stand? Where do I locate myself? In time and in place. Therefore, I feel that when you are talking about partition and partition literature, our first idea should be to try and talk on the map of India at some point of time. That is where we should begin this entire discourse of trying to talk on the partition of India and the related literary texts which we are wanting to discuss. One of them being Iskandinav. Now, how many of you can raise your hands and say, I know from where to where on a map India was extended in 1946? কোথায় শুরু ছিল, কোথায় শেষ হয়েছিল? How many of you we can say, sir, I know it? I was talking at Pandaveshwar College some 18 months ago on train to Pakistan. I had this exact similar response from them. Who is to be blamed? We are to be blamed. It starts from us. Because we never show it in front of you. Just as when we teach drama, we never take you to see a show, therefore it is only theoretical. Similarly, when we do all these things, our idea is never to locate the text. So the first thing is that we need to look at our history. Okay. And this history begins from this part. So when we are looking at India 1946, we are not looking at India. We are looking at the Indian subcontinent. আমি এই প্রেজেন্টেশনটা এমনিতে দিয়ে যাচ্ছি ডিপার্টমেন্টে, তোমরা ওটা পরে পেতে পারো। আমি পিডিএফটাও আমি এটাকে পিপিটিটাকে পিডিএফ করে পাঠিয়ে দেবো। সো ইউ নিড নট burden your phones with all these photographs. Okay. ওটা এত ছবি নিতে নিতে দেখবি যে স্টোরেজ সিস্টেম গেল। So I'll just give the PDF also so that you can have it. Okay. ওটা better হবে। You can put it on your mail bag and that will stay forever. Okay. So this is the map that we are talking about. And when we are talking about the map, from here is the Indian subcontinent, up to here. A large tract of land. That's the first thing that you need to understand. That this was India 1946, when the British were thinking of dividing the country, the Indian subcontinent, into two different nation states. That was the thought, that was the map. Now just try to think about, just take a deep breath for a second, and try to think that how challenging it is to find out as to where do we divide the country. How do we divide the country? Now, of course, when this proposition came up to try and divide the country, that was a political decision. Shantanu has already said that it was adopted at the Lahore session of the Indian Union Muslim League in 1940. Gandhi was against it. Nehru was mum about it. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was concerned about it. Jinnah was ambitious about it. And Iqbal, who wrote Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara, was the pioneering mind behind the two-nation theory. Very few of us know that how hypocritical it is for a person who writes Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara to also talk about the division of the Indian subcontinent into multiple fractions. Now, this political buffering or political torpedoing down of this theory of the division of Indian subcontinent was challenged by the whole fact as to how do we make it? Who makes it? Do the British make it? Or the British, who are losing fast control over the world, particularly in the context of what had happened after the Second World War, do they say it's your pie, here is the plate, jo chahe karo tum log, humko pata nahi. Or do they say, okay, we will help you out, here is the knife, let's cut it through, slice it through. But the question is, who holds the knife? It can be the pie in front of the Indians. I mean, by Indians, I mean the entire Indian subcontinent and its stakeholders. Or it can be that it is the British who say, we will do you a favor. We will cut the cake. Hum karke jaate hain bhaiya. But were the British honest enough about this division? One. Two, were they equipped enough about this division? Now, if you look at the next slide, this is the area of our contention regarding the partition of Punjab and Sindh. This is the particular Punjab, this part, which will be known as Pakistan, and part of it will still be India. This is the area of concern. Now, if you look at the colors over there, the green color is those areas which are Muslim dominated. The yellow colors are about states which were the princely states still. The other parts are non-Muslim majority, means Hindu majority and Sikh majority. Now, when you look at just this part of the world, you will get an immediate idea that it is not as easy as it is to partition this whole area. Because if you cut the cake from here straight through, there is at least one non-Muslim majority section which stays back in what will be Pakistan.
If you cut it through here, there are at least 3 Muslim-dominated areas which will have to be attached to India. That means Lahore comes to India, Montgomery comes to India, Multan comes to India. And that makes the whole prospect of dividing the Indian subcontinent even more difficult based on what was supposed to be the two-nation theory. So when we talk about suffering, death, molestation, rape, murder, mutilation, dislocation, all these things together becoming the trauma, the whole thing begins from this map that I'm trying to show. Now, if you go furthermore, these are the districts of undivided Punjab. 1946, based on the population count of 1941. This is the undivided Punjab map. अब वो केक तो हाथ में है, छुरी भी हाथ में है, काटो भैया, undivided को divided करो. Where do we start? Where do we end? Now, if it is not done expertly, I've already talked about all these problems which will be the trauma. Those become multiple times over difficult. The complexity becomes even more. Now, I'll give you a data overview. Look at the thing. 1941. I'm looking at the Punjab province of British India. Punjab province, entirety, that undivided part. Islamist groups are 53.2%. Hinduism is 30.1%. So if you go according to the two-nation theory, then mathematically you will say, okay, let's give Punjab to Pakistan. Let's give it. That would solve the problem. Let's give it to Pakistan. Because over there, all the others would be minority. And here is a 0.3%. That will also become important. Don't discount it. I'll say why later on. Okay. Now that is the data, 1941. But when you are looking at Punjab province, there are two Punjabs which are there. Eastern Punjab and Western Punjab. Over there, if you go to Western Punjab, the part where I showed Montgomery, Lahore, etc., there the Islamist population is not 53%, it is 75%. And Hindus are 13.68%. Now, that means, and the others are the Parsi population which are there, who are neither Hindus, nor Sikhs, nor Muslims, nor Christians, others. They are mostly the Parsi population. And once we start discussing Bapsi Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man, the narrator is a Parsi girl. This data is related to that. Look at the next one. But when you shift to East Punjab, the Hindus are 46%, the Muslims are 30.88%. Just the reverse of the thing. And the others are 0.12%. The Sikhs are 21%. That means if you add this, this is now 51%. Okay. So at different levels, when you're talking about partition, you're finding that it's never easy to think of a two-nation theory. In effect, in spirit, the two-nation theory proposed by Jinnah and Iqbal Saab was essentially a flawed document. वो कभी ठीक से implement ही नहीं हो सकता. But why was it to be implemented? Because it was supposed to be religion based. Whose religion? Which religion? Which part do you think about the religion? That becomes very difficult to understand in the context of the two-nation theory from what I've shown to you. Now, the two-nation theory which will now give to the identity crisis in the subcontinent. कौन किधर जाएगा? Talking about Toba Tek Singh, Bishan Singh, Upardi Gurgur. Okay. If you look at that map and you look at the province of Punjab on the western side, then actually Toba Tek Singh is a district over there. It's a district. हम जब कहते हैं ना कि हरचरण सिंह लोंगोवाल, जर्नैल सिंह भृंदनवाले, this लोंगोवाल, भृंदनवाले, नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू, okay, Surjit Singh Barnala, these are the places to which these people belong to. The surname comes from the place. तो बिशन सिंह जो तोबा तेग सिंह में था, उसका एक्चुअली पूरा सरनेम होना चाहिए था बिशन तोबा टेक सिंह. ठीक है? Now he is one example, for example, what they have discussed. He is one example of the millions of people who had an identity based on where they lived. Be it Sikhs, be it Hindus, be it the Muslims. Okay, their identity was land-based, place-based, where they stayed. And now with the two-nation theory, that whole identity was now being challenged. And the first question was, किधर जाएंगे हम? कहाँ जाएंगे हम? And very importantly, क्यों जाएंगे? Because to leave or live in that place was not their decision. The decision was being dictated by somebody else who belonged to either the Congress or the Muslim League or the last remnants of the British Raj, headed by Lord Louis Mountbatten. And in the aftermath of the Second World War, where Britain had suffered very badly, and the government had changed from the Conservative to the Labour government, a new Prime Minister was there, Clement Attlee, and his challenge was whether to repair Britain or to divide the Indian subcontinent, which was more zaruri. Okay, he had to go to His Highness and say, which one do we do first? Repair Britain and its economy? Or take up the question of the Indian cake and divide it? Whom do we send to divide it? Now, in the context of this, therefore, as we go, so the two-nation theory is an ideology of religious nationalism which significantly influenced the Indian subcontinent following its independence from the British Empire. Already they have said the plan was to partition India by 3rd June into two states, India and Pakistan, based on Hindu majority and Muslim majority, but never taking into account the social and human dimensions of displacement, of dislocation, of impending chaos which would come down on society as a whole. Society, I mean, across the board, all provinces involved with this. And remember, there had to be a change of government also at that point of time in 1947. So whose control would it be to have this exchange of population which Jinnah wanted? Muslims going to Pakistan. Why? Hindus coming to India, Sikhs coming to India. Why? সব ভিটে মাটি ছেড়ে আমি কেন চলে যাব ওদিকে? কারণ তুমি চাইছো এটা দেশটা রিলিজিয়াস বেসিসে ভাগ হোক। সেখানে আমাকে গভর্নমেন্ট কি প্রোটেকশন দেবে? কার গভর্নমেন্ট প্রোটেকশন দেবে? That is also a question. So all these, because it was essentially a political decision, ideologically driven by religious fanaticism. अब 77 साल बाद भी हम
उसी के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं और इसी को भुगत रहे हैं. That two-nation theory, that madness of partition which Pritam was referring to, we are the descendants, bearers of that chaos even today. Okay, किसका पाकिस्तान, कहाँ का पाकिस्तान, किसका हिंदुस्तान, कहाँ का हिंदुस्तान, किस किस का हिंदुस्तान, ये आज भी हम डिबेट कर रहे हैं. We are still going on. And if you look at these 77 years, 78 years, how many lives have been lost? Partition is supposed to have traumatized this whole area. Post-independence, the trauma has not ended. 78 years hence, the trauma has not ended. So how India may be split? This is another map. Now look at the thing. The first thing that was decided, about 560 states, they would be unaffected. These parts, in Rajputana, Central, Hyderabad, Mysuru, okay, all these, Kashmir even, it would be unaffected. जिसको लेके हम लड़ रहे हैं आज, that would be unaffected. The grey parts, Bombay, Madras Presidency, Bihar, United Provinces, they would go to Hindustan. And these parts would become Pakistan, including if you go on to the east. And because that was also Muslim dominated. So the partition was spread about 1400 kilometers, 1600 kilometers apart and strewn all over the subcontinent. Now look at, so now the thing is that, what will happen to these people? They will be given an option. तुम कहाँ जाना चाहते हो? किसके साथ रहना चाहते हो? Easier because Rajputana, Hyderabad, Mysore, Central, and all these places, they can say, okay, see, it's nearer geographically to India, ethically, ethnically, economically, and all other sorts. This is more rational, so we go to India. But there is a buffer zone over there, Kashmir, ruled by a Hindu Raja who had a Muslim prime minister, and the aspiration of, according to the two-nation theory, because it was majorly Muslim population, to go towards Pakistan, and the Raja did not want to. Now, as you see this, so there has to be a division. Somebody was given the knife. So Mountbatten brought in this guy called Cyril Ratcliffe to divide India, to draw those lines. Now, when you were kids, think about your second birthday, third birthday, and the cake was there, and that knife was in your hand. Happy birthday to you. And you're told to cut the cake. Could you make the pieces out? Steadily cut the parte. So happy birthday to me. Baba ke khawao, maa ke khawao. It was that way. So it was a matter of chance as to how this 450,000 square kilometers of territory, which was having 88 million people, how it would be divided. Now, to divide this place, you need an expert who understands which mohalla, which kasba, which city is dominated by whom. Srijit Mukherjee রাজকাহিনী দেখেছো? কেউ যদি না দেখে থাকো দেখো, একটা বাড়ির উঠোন বরাবর পার্টিশন। তারা বলছে কোথাও যাব না, এটা আমার বাড়ি। বলছে আধাটা এদিকে আধাটা ওদিকে। কি কাণ্ড বলো তো? So it is quite possible that when you draw the line, Cyril Ratcliffe draws the line. One brother is on this side, the other brother is on that side.
or maybe one brother and half the neighbor is on this side, other part of the neighbor's family is on that side. So it becomes very difficult, but that is the government's rule. Cyril Radcliffe ने कहा है, उस बच्चे के हाथ में छुरी था, केक काट दिया, अब बोला कि चलो इधर जाओ उधर जाओ. So that comes to the whole thing, that this is the cost that we have for partition. Violence and human cost during this political and historical event. Displacement of people and migration. Migration not willingly, mostly not willingly. তোমাকে বাড়ি ছেড়ে, যেটা প্রীতম বলছিল, বাড়ি ছেড়ে চলে যেতে চাইলে তুমি যাবে, তুমি যাবে না, কিন্তু বলছে তোকে যেতেই হবে। चलो यहाँ से आप यहाँ नहीं रह सकते, जैसे विशन को कह गया आप यहाँ नहीं रह सकते, आप सीखो उधर जाओ। अब उसके पास क्या है प्रश्न, टोबा टेक सिंह कहाँ है? जहां टोबा टेक सिंह है वही मैं हूं, लेकिन टोबा टेक सिंह तो पाकिस्तान में है, लेकिन आप सीखो आप नहीं रह सकते। So this is displacement and forced migration. Uncertainty. Where do we go? What happens next to us? Will we reach safely? बूढ़े को लेके, बच्चे को लेके, can we go safely? How do we go? So people walked miles, they took trains. And I'll show you a picture of how pathetic it was, because this is what happened. Trains were chock-a-block full, and in those days, remember, there were Zenana compartments, women, ladies placed in special compartments. No man could go get in there. बीबी और लड़की रहेंगे उधर. And look at the thing, people hanging from the windows and the train chugging along. Somebody, out of tiredness and inability to hold on to that thing, the man fell off. The son was inside the compartment. When they reached the destination, if they ever reached without getting killed, the son couldn't find the mother and the sister. The wife was going everywhere trying to find the husband. The husband had fallen off somewhere. कौन जिम्मेदार था? जिन्ना, नेहरू, गांधी, माउंटबैटन, सभी. Partition, when we talk about partition, we must first realize this is what happened. This is what happened when partition took place. Because these people who were rushing out, were migrating, were running for their lives, bora, bistar, cattle, gehne, everything, whatever was movable and physically possible to move as a burden, they were running away into uncertainty, into a dark tunnel. People who had lived in one corner of Pakistan, they were told, because you're a Hindu, go towards Amritsar. They'd never ever heard of Amritsar. People who are living in some corner of, say, now our Punjab, they were told, go to that side. They did not know anyone. They had never seen those places. So partition was a dictation to the lives of people. How do you look at it? Where do we go? And first of all, there is no livelihood. There is no certainty of livelihood. So you had a business, you are an agriculturist, just because your religion did not allow you to live at a certain place, you were thrown out. And you had to start a new life based on uncertainty, starting as a refugee. Okay. আমাদের জেনারেশন এবং তোমাদের জেনারেশন, আমাদের কাছে এগুলো না খালি টেক্সট. We can never imagine the magnitude of the suffering of these people and what was left of their houses which they left behind. किसी के हवाले रख के गया था, and then it was razed to the ground. এই ভরসায় রেখে গিয়েছিল কারোর কাছে যে কোনোদিন ফেরত আসবো, এসে দেখবো। কিন্তু পরে জানতে পেরেছিল সেটা নেই। অনেকে অনেক বছর পরে ফেরত গেছে ভিসা নিয়ে, নেই। searching. That is partition history, where your identity which you left behind, that identity was raised to the ground forever. So the trauma starts from there. That my grandfather had this, my father had this, we had this, and everything has been lost. So where do you start your memory from? This one which was there, or the new one where you become a new citizen of a new country, either as an Indian or as a Pakistani. Where do you start your memory? Which history do you start reading? Which history do you start understanding? Which law do you belong to? So the birth of memory and narration through partition becomes the framework for partition. And partition novels are perhaps the best examples of this, because they can comprehensively give you a better picture. Not to say that poetry or non-fiction cannot. So some of these partition novels are what we will discuss. Ice Candy Man, Hisham Sani's Tamas. Tamas you can watch on YouTube because it also became a TV series starring Om Puri and Deepa Sani. যদি সত্যি সত্যি তোমরা বুঝতে চাও পার্টিশন লিটারেচার, তাহলে প্রথম হচ্ছে অন্তত হিশাম সানির তামাসটা একবার দেখো। আর MS সাত্যুর একটা মুভি আছে গরম হাওয়া, the last movie of celebrated actor Parikshit Sani, sorry, Hisham Sani. Balraj Sani. Okay, you have to watch that to understand it. Now this brings us to the term called trauma, which is the second part of my lecture. What is trauma? Essentially, trauma is a very deeply medical term arising out of a wound or injury. Okay, arising out of a wound or injury. It is a medical term arising out of suddenness of an event. হঠাৎ করে আঘাত লাগলো, জায়গাটা নাম হয়ে গেল। That is the trauma in the place. You live with your family, God forbid someone of that family dies suddenly. How do you come to terms with that injury on the mind? That is trauma. It is a psychological term arising out of a sudden event. It is a psychological term which carries a deep impact for a long length of time. Long length of time. অনেক দিন ধরে এটা থাকে। It is a scar which might last a lifetime. কোনোদিনই heal হবে না। আজীবন রয়ে যাবে। Say a person who was 40 when partition happened and he lost everything. When he dies at the age of 80, he carries the wound, the scar of what was there and how he started and how he lived the rest of his life. That scar remains for a lifetime. তোমরা যারা 6 7 এখন আছো, you must have studied the ghosts of Mrs. Gandhi. Okay, try to think of that when you read the ghosts of Mrs. Gandhi, the 1984 Sikh riots following the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. ঠিক আছে, সেটা যখন তুমি পড়ো তাহলে ওখানে দেখবে that how people in certain areas of Delhi, they relocated from different areas and started life again from being refugees to being businessmen. With those areas which you will now call Saket, Mayur Vihar, etc. in Delhi, where they started life once over again. And then in one particular day of madness, following the fact that 3 Sikhs had killed the Prime Minister, all Sikh establishments were allowed to be razed to the ground or people were killed, and the government did not act for 72 hours. Government did not act. Although a new Prime Minister came into place, although there was a president in place, nothing was. People just allowed this massacre to take place. So that scar which had healed, which was in the process of healing, from 1947 till 1984, কত বছর? 37 বছরে they had made their lives once over again. That was a game scarred till death. Double scar. এবং এটা কেন হয়েছিল? অরিজিনালি লোকগুলো কিন্তু অন্য জায়গা থেকে এসেছিল, অনেকেই অন্য জায়গা থেকে এসেছিল, ঠিক আছে? Now, this is what Achal Malhotra, the historian, says. That a new life in a new country, leaving all that was once familiar behind. Partition taught us that. She has a book called The Language of Remembering. Malhotra has documented the legacy of partition and the ways in which it continues to affect the children and even grandchildren of partition survivors. The past never goes away. আমার দাদু এটা সাফার করেছিল, আমার বাবা এটা সাফার করেছিল, or I had suffered in my childhood. I'll tell you, my Jathamasai, when partition took place, just in 1946, he had done his matriculation from Lahore, and then the family relocated because of the job profile of my grandfather to Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. And then he saw what was happening due to the communal violence. Okay, till his death last year, he was always talking on these things. For a lifetime that will be. The present is torturous. বলবে এতদিন ধরে বসে আছি, এত বকবক করলেন, আইস ক্যান্ডিম্যান কোথায় গেল স্যার? আইস ক্যান্ডিম্যান is narrative comes through the lens of, through the narration of Leni Sethi, a small girl. She is neither Hindu nor Muslim nor Sikh nor Christian, but 0.03% of that population which I had mentioned in the previous data, her community belongs to. सोचने वाली बात यह है, when the Parsis, when partition was taking place, what was the stand of the Parsis? वो क्या सोच रहे थे? Now the partition, you must understand that the Parsis are, all these Tatas are Parsis, contractor Parsi, merchant, Sarnagula Parsi. These are very resourceful people. Okay, they run business, they are into shipbuilding, into various other industries. Now what happens is that these people, they decided to stay neutral. हमें कहीं नहीं जाना है, हमें कुछ भी नहीं करना है. If too much happens, we'll just wind up our business. Whatever money is there, we'll either shift to Canada or to Britain. जितना दिन रह सकते हैं कराची में रहेंगे या बॉम्बे में रहेंगे, नहीं तो हम भाग जाएंगे इंग्लैंड. Because England was again after World War II, there was a process of trying to rebuild. They said this is the opportunity, we can go over there and start business afresh. So they were mostly neutral. So people like, and if you read the novel, you'll find that there is this leader, Dr. Bharucha, I suppose his name is, of the community, of this Parsi community, who says, what should be our stand? What should be our stand during partition? And he says, we will be neutral. We are neither Muslim, nor Sikhs, nor Hindus, so we need not be bothered. So they were just observing partition unfolding in front of their eyes. ওরা খালি দেখছে, দেখছে আর ভাবছে আমার ইন্টারেস্টে যেন ধর্ম না. And because they would never be touched, because they were not Muslims, Sikhs and Hindus, therefore nobody will attack them. Only thing is that if the situation becomes too bad economically, then they have to move. Otherwise they will not be going anywhere. They will stay where they are. So Leni's family also stays where they stay. Okay, and her family is completely dissociated from the events unfolding. Vapsi Sidhwa chooses the narrator as a Parsi kid because it is the best way to try and have an unbiased, এই যে narrative technique দিয়ে যদি answer লিখতে হয়, I can do that. তাহলে সেখানে কি লিখবে? Leni is the narrator. কিন্তু why Leni? Because the Parsi gives an unbiased narrative opportunity. That is the thing. Because if Sidhwa had chosen any of the other religions, then she would have been accused of trying to politicize partition. This is the opportunity. She is 4 to 9 during the narrative. Innocent, but we'll find not so innocent. The child adult. उसके आंखों के सामने इतना सारा चीज हो जाता है that mentally she grows up than what is usual for an 9-year-old. Lenny is caught up in the conflagration of partition. Indirectly. Her family is not touched, but indirectly she's caught up. Now, one of the things about this novel is that Lenny is surrounded by women. Mother, there is her ayah. I'll tell you why the ayah, because she is polio stricken. She needs help. Who is an actual mother like figure and friend. Godmother, who is a heaven. Whenever she finds a crisis mentally, she goes to Godmother. Then there are 2 other characters called slave sister and electric aunt. Okay. Now one of the things about, see, if a child is born who is somehow physically not very proficient, okay, she has some disability, then who should be the greatest strength for that female child? The mother. It is usual that the mother, তোমরা তারা করেছো? তারাতে think about Bharati Patel. Bharati Patel is so attached towards Tara. You are not gaining weight, have your milk. And she says, I cannot have milk, I will not take milk. Isn't it so? That is, the mother should be the hand around the shoulder always. The omniscient presence in the life of such a child who is stricken by polio and is confined to a wheelchair, something like that, who cannot move out. But the mother takes it as a burden in this case. This is called treacherous spirit. Now for a child who is already disabled in a way, physically challenged in a way, if the mother does not stay with the child and gives all the responsibility to an ayah who is a Hindu called Shanta, how will the child feel? That mother does not care. मम्मी को कुछ आता जाता नहीं है, मुझको क्या होगा? वो अपने जिंदगी बिता रही है. She is into parties, she is into other things. She does not care for me. In the novel, that is the way that the mother is. This is called treacherous parenting because you are letting down a child. And what effect will that have on the mind of the child? The child will be, I was talking about trauma. So the division, partition is a political division. Pritam was saying it is also a mindset division. And this mindset division can also be within the family if the parent is uncaring towards a child. আজকে যদি আমি আমার ছেলেকে ছেড়ে দিই বলে যে আমি তো আর কেউ হই না, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে তার এফেক্টটা হবে তো আমার তো কিছু নেই, বাবা কেয়ারই করে না, পয়সা দিয়ে দেয়, হয়ে গেল শেষ, আমার কি প্রয়োজন, whether I like it or not, what are my choices, whether I need help, he doesn't care. So I will be accused of betraying the trust towards the child. Her mother, Lenny's mother, is treacherous because she betrays her trust when she is in a physical and therefore mental crisis. The partition comes through like that. এটা যখন নভেলটা আমেরিকাতে পাবলিশ হয়েছিল তার নাম ছিল ক্র্যাকিং ইন্ডিয়া। এই ক্র্যাকটা না খালি গ্রুপসের মধ্যে হিন্দু মুসলিম নয়, ক্র্যাকসটা ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল টু ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল। So Lenny leans on Shanta and towards Godmother because she finds that it is necessary to try and be towards someone whom she can confess things to. She needs someone to take care of her. And Aya, who is only supposed to be looking after her physical needs like giving her a bath, helping her out with toilet duties, etc., etc., becomes her friend even at the age of 8 or 9, because of the fact that she plays the mother role. Okay, which she doesn't get at home. Now this gives rise to syndromes within blend. This is an uncaring thing that happens. Physical part is being polio stricken. Now the trauma is more mental than physical. তোমার একটা পায়েতে ছোট বড় হতে পারে. With time you will adjust. What about this part? If that becomes sudden, the suddenness of the event that my mother does not accept, or my family takes me as a liability, when there is a party going on, they don't bring me out into the open because I am sort of disadvantaged, and it is sharm ki baat hai ki ladki aisi hai. Then how do you do? It gives rise to multiple factors of complex trauma. These are irregular curiosity. I am confined to a room. What is happening outside? What are the adults doing? Why does mother stay with dad? There is a line where she says, oh, she cannot stay without the touches of father. How should a child of 9 question this? That means she has already grown up beyond her infancy and has gone into post-adult adolescence. She's behaving like an adult. Irregular curiosity, hypervigilance. क्या चल रहा है? कहाँ चल रहा है? That sort of a thing. Outside, emotionally, politically, historically, how things are panning out in front of her. There are somatic symptoms, fear. Will I be affected? Post-traumatic stress disorder. And social norms are transgressed. Okay. Shows symptoms of adverse childhood experience. Arises from narrated and imagined experience and condition. Particularly, there is a character called Ranna. Ranna, who goes to his village in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, at a place called Pirpindo, and comes back a traumatized boy because his whole village is smashed. People are killed, women are raped in front of his eyes, and he comes and narrates these to the cook and others. There is a scar on his skull where someone with a sickle hit him. The sickle structure is over there. That mark is over there. Where he had bled, and then he finally managed to come to this place. Somehow, she hears that. So she imagines that all this is happening outside. Narrative accounts of Shaukat Khan, visuals of dismembered bodies in the streets of Lahore. She stays in Lahore. She has these visions. Conversations of the bourgeois class. All these people. She's not surrounded by her family's elite family. Well-to-do. But she's always surrounded by what the working class is there. The mali, the cook, the aya, the Madaka ice candy man. Okay. The other people whom we do not generally mix with. That is her family. Okay. And when there is the Hindu gardener is honored and is told to convert to Islam, she watches that. And therefore, these conversations have a deep impact on her mind. Now, at times she becomes angry. There is anger modulation. And she also has sexual involvement. She hears about the relationship between Shanta and the Ice Candy Man. Okay, and others. She's a good-looking young girl, young woman, Shanta. Apparently, she has multiple interests, or multiple people are interested in her. There is one particular section where Lenny guesses that there is a sexual encounter happening. She watches that and has an idea about it. She also wants that to happen. That is the trauma that she carries. I want this to happen to me. I want to feel belonged physically. And therefore she tries to have the same thing with her own cousin. It is sin, she knows. But the trauma causes her to get involved in such a way. Okay, there's this line in the text. I reel busily on a fleetingly glimpsed and terribly grown up world. তোমাকে তোমরা যখন 6, 7, 8 বছরের ছিলে কি চাইতে? ওই 6, 7, 8 বছরের বাচ্চাদের সাথে খেলতে চাইতে? All of us, when we were youngsters, we always wanted to have friends of our own age. Correct? Definitely. Now that you are into your late teenage or early adulthood, তোমাদের কি ভালো লাগে যে যদি তোমাকে বলে যে তোমার এভরিডে মিক্সিং আপের সাথে হচ্ছে একটা 11 বছরের মেয়ে, কত ছোট কিছু বোঝে না। That is the sort of idea that you have. So day in and day out, if you are told to mix with that person, that is also a trauma, because you are not. After a length of time, if this goes on for 6 months, you will start feeling you are an 11-year-old, and your choices in life will start to be like that. And you'll understand I'm not growing up, my growth has been stunted. Similarly, if you are always surrounded by adults when you are not an adult yourself, that also just propels you into adulthood when you are not understanding all the dimensions of adulthood. That causes a deep impact on the mind. You know this is not correct. You know that certain things only adults do. And I should not be doing. I should not be listening. I should not try to understand. But I am repeatedly trying to understand. This is what I am doing. I should not be doing this. Growing up too early or lagging behind too much, both are traumatic. 11 বছরের সাথে কন্টিনিউয়াসলি মিক্স করাটা মুশকিল, আবার 17 বছরের বয়সে তোমার কম্প্যানিয়নরা হচ্ছে 28, 29, 30, 32 বছরের ভদ্রমহিলারা, ভদ্রমহিলা বলবে, that too is also very dejecting after a length of time, because they will talk about samsar and serial and everything else, and maybe children going to school. Some of them might be having children or getting them into say play school or something like that. They say, chal kya hai, what is happening over here? Why me? Why do I have to listen to all this? And the conversation is on everyday things being brought into the house. Husband and wife not agreeing on matters. Tumi ota anoni, tumi eta anoni. So that is also traumatism. You feel your head starts feeling. You feel dizzy about things. Subconscious way of blaming. Now, there will be a time when you will be angry. Angry for what you should not be having as a life. Now, that comes out in one very brutal scene in this novel. When she takes up a doll and limb by limb, part by part, Lenny goes on dismembering the doll. It is, if you look at it, it's grisly. You read the novel and you look at it, think about it, it's like someone who has been put into a trance, ওই টুকটাক করা হয়েছে এবং সে ওইটাকে চেষ্টা করছে এরকম যেরকম আগেকার দিনে বা ইনকাস এরকম ডলসদেরকে ইয়ে ফোটাতো, নিডলস ফোটাতো আর অন্য কারোর ক্ষতি হবে সেটা হতো না, সেই যেগুলো বিলিভস গুলো আছে ঠিক সেরকম। I want to tear this apart. Because what she sees outside, she doesn't want to be part of it, but she has been forced to be part of it. Therefore, she wants to tear away from it. In her subconscious mind, she wants to tear away from that. So this adult world in front of her, that doll is the adult world, she wants to tear away from it. She is neither the child nor the adult. She wants to tear away from her existential dilemma. Okay. She learns about a bag full of breasts which have come from Gurdaspur in eastern Punjab. And immediately, because her enemy is her mother, treacherous parenting, she immediately conjures up this thing that how would it be if my mother lost her breasts and that was put into a bag. Partition does this in the mind, to the mind. Remember this. Okay. Now literally the last straw comes when when the house is actually, mob fury is something which you cannot explain. যেটা আমাদের নেতারা বলেন স্বতঃপ্রণোদিতভাবে জনরোষ ঘটেছে। It might be organized. Someone must have incited it. But once it starts, all these mob lynchings, can you explain the logic behind it? Killing someone is so difficult. But killing a person because you've been incited to violence is even more terrible. Even more terrible it is. So when there is a Muslim mob which actually surrounds the house, and they say you are actually hiding a Hindu. The Hindu is Shanta. And to the credit of Mrs. Sethi, she says there is no one over here. And then the Muslim mob, among them there is this ice candy man. He says, just tell me where Daya is. And then she's a child, Lenny, barely 9. She just points out the finger upwards towards the attic where Shanta has been hit. And next moment, she finds that the mob has gone up the stairs, and by the hair, Shanta is dragged and is taken. Okay, this is now the outside world, the macrocosm of partition fury, which has now visited her own microcosm of the house. ও খালি শুনতো যে এই ভায়োলেন্স গুলো হচ্ছে, লোকেরা মারছে, হিন্দু মুসলিমকে মারছে, মুসলিম হিন্দুকে মারছে, শিখ মুসলিমকে মারছে, মুসলিম শিখকে মারছে. Only her, but to see it in front of the eyes that her own greatest friend and caregiver is being dragged out by the hair, and then she's not seen ever again, literally. আর দেখতে পাবো না. So there is this sense of guilt which is there. And over the next 3 days, that horrible scene, it visits her. And what happens is that she cannot sleep. She continuously vomits, retches and vomits. Okay, because she's helpless, her mother will not take care of her. Aya is to take care of her, she's not there. She's left even more alone. And therefore what happens is that she goes in front of the mirror and thinks, what made me speak the lines? She looks at her tongue repeatedly, wanting to literally pull it out and throw it away for saying this. She brushes her teeth, brushes her tongue repeatedly till it starts bleeding and she cannot eat and she cannot sleep. It's pathetic. So the trauma, the mental trauma, she now translates into physical trauma. আঘাতটা মাথায় মানে মনে লেগেছে, সেটাকে ফিজিক্যালি ট্রান্সলেট করছে যে আমি দায়ী, I am guilty, I am party to this. I have become not the objective, innocent narrator who does not belong to any of these communities, but I have become part of the Muslim community and have become part of the violence towards the Hindu. Okay, it is betrayal. There is rise in obsessive sexual habits. Then she sees before all this, she sees the hacked body of the bastard in the train. Knowledge of, and then there is a search which is engaged by Mrs. Sethi as to where Aya has gone. And one day they see her bedecked like a Bollywood heroine, sitting inside a car, going through the streets of Lahore towards a mohalla which is supposed to be a red light area. She has become a kothewali. Okay, so partition, this is the description that people like Aya, what were they trying to do? Earn money so that they could send it to the family. और तो कोई बात नहीं था. Working in the household of a well-known Parsi for money, taking care of the child so that she could support her family. And then to know that I am indirectly responsible in the degeneration of this woman from a very protected young Hindu girl who had an honor of being the caregiver of the child to a prostitute, I am responsible for it. That is the greatest trauma. So partition, if you look at these stories of partition, particularly in the context of Ice Candy Man, Shanta is just a representation of all these women. All these women. Later on, she is somehow rescued and she is put across the Wagah border towards Amritsar. Okay, but the fact is that will she ever reach her own people? Will they accept the fact? That means when they sent her to Lahore, and Lahore and, if you look at it, Lahore and Amritsar, they were a few hundred kilometers apart. She was sent by the family willingly to earn money. How is she coming back to her own family as a Hindu lady? Not as the ayah of Lenny, but Shanta the Kothewali, maybe with a different name, which might be a Muslim. Will the family accept it? Women who are raped, molested during partition. The question is, even if they found their own families during dislocation, migration, forced migration. The question is, were these women ever accepted by their families? Maxi Sitwa died last year on the 25th of December. Prior to her death, I had been her Facebook friend for 11 years. Okay. I had the privilege of talking with her sometimes on Facebook Messenger. Okay. Now, she died in USA. She used to live in USA. She left Pakistan because she felt that Pakistan, although she was a Pakistani by nationality, she couldn't remain a Pakistani because Pakistan, by her count, was a flawed state. It was a flawed state. And she, as a free-thinking, well-known, erudite person, couldn't accept staying back and teaching in Pakistan or being part of academia or something like that. Her mind would not allow it. So when you look at Ice Candy Man, Ice Candy Man is just not a novel which comes through as something which is just one of the partition novels. এই যে দেশভাগটা আমি দেখালাম তোমাদের, যে একটা huge tract of land, Cyril Radcliffe with a knife dividing it, Jinnah with a two-nation theory, saying all Muslims that side, all Hindus this side, all Sikhs this side, and could not make it happen. Okay, Gandhi understood it would never happen. It was not feasible to make this happen. Tell me, why should a Muslim staying in the far corner of Alleppey in Kerala go to Pakistan just because he was a Muslim? Or even a Hindi-speaking Hyderabadi Muslim go away to Pakistan so many miles apart, जहाँ रहन सहन कुछ भी नहीं मिलता था. Why? Why should it be that way? What was the logic? So when you're reading Ice Candy Man, or you're reading Train to Pakistan, or you're reading another novel which comes to mind is Manju Kapoor's Difficult Daughters. ওটা পড়ে দেখো. At some point, গল্পের বই হিসেবে পড়ে দেখো. তোমরা গল্প কম পড়ো, আমি জানি. Making you people read is very difficult. Okay, very unfortunately and sadly. But read it at some point of time. You'll find plenty of relations with this. Or Sunlight on a Broken Column by Atia Hussain. If you read those, these are a statement. These are not individual novels. These are statements of resistance. I'll call them statements of resistance to an essentially flawed political idea, which was historically torpedoed down to us, and the results are for all of us to see after even 78 years of independence. ना वो शांति में है, ना हम शांति में हैं.
ना वो complete है, ना हम मुकम्मल है. That is the point. What has partition taught us? Partition has taught us, as Pritam was saying, shared history is there, shared language is there, shared memory is there. With a political statement and with a concocted and distorted religious ideology, you cannot divide a united nation based on either the Gita or the Quran or the Granth Sahib. It's not possible. If you do it, the trauma stays for generations. আজকে যেগুলো ঘটছে, যে কাণ্ডগুলো লোকেদেরকে মারছে, আমরা গিয়ে বম মেরে আসছি, ঠিক আছে, ওরা ফায়ারিং করছে, এই আমরা ওরাটা তো পলিটিক্যাল ডিভিশন। ওকে, এটা আমরা ওরা তো পলিটিক্যাল ডিভিশন, where religion was put at the forefront by someone, and someone else's prime ministerial ambitions created a compromise. আমি খুব চাচা ছলে বলে ফেললাম, I'm sorry, but someone else's prime ministerial ambitions was fulfilled and he accepted this. But even after 78 years, we have not been able to tide over partition. You look at Yugoslavia, which was broken up into 4 nation states. Look at Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia. Look at the breakdown of the United Soviet Republic into 16 nation states. Nowhere is there peace. Nowhere are people safe. Partition at any level, anywhere globally, যেটা প্রীতম লাস্টটাতে বলছিল, it is essentially an unworkable political principle. That is what history teaches us. ওই ম্যাপটা যদি আমি ফেরত যাই, একদম প্রথমের ম্যাপটা যদি আমি ফেরত যাই, এইটা, if the British had left this to us, it's huge. If the British had left it to us and had not divided it, if there had been a summary rejection of the two-nation theory, the Indian subcontinent is equal to India in this war would have been a stronger nation state where generations would have lived peacefully, and maybe religion would not have been a very prominent bone of contention in our lives. Sadly, we have never learned it. Thank you so much.
Are you waiting for your questions if you have? Because others who have gone away, I can start reading the questions.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call our Professor Arpita ma'am for honoring memento to the sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, now we came to the end of the program, and if anyone having any questions or queries or any doubts, the lecture session is being ended and the question session has been opened. So everyone requested to, if there is any doubt or question, you may ask to the professor.
For the moment, I'm open to both overtakes it and this is responsible for what happens to Shanta? Okay. Who is responsible for looking on most dispassionately to the unfolding events which is there, and is not touched too much by all this? Okay, Lenny is touched. Therefore, the novel cannot be called Lenny. What was it originally? Cracking India. When it was brought out in the Indian edition, in India, then it was called Ice Candy Man, because European का होना बहुत जरूरी है हमारे. This is it. This is very beautiful. I personally think it is more to do with male centricity in a much more what to say, women dominated novel. So to look at who actually dictates whatever happens to Lenny, to maybe later on to her mother and to others, that conduit is Iceland. That conduit is Iceland. Okay, therefore, perhaps this factor is important. If you ask me, then I'd say I have get the rest of the time. Okay, I think cracking it is a much better term to use for a novel, for this novel. That what is ice candy? Ice candy is a sweet. What do you call it? That is it. So it is something which you are always attracted to. The sweet content and the way it looks, strawberry, white, whatever you say, always attracted to. So your childish inquisitiveness is towards that. Okay. So the significance is that this character, perhaps, is that glue or the holding part which attracts the rest of the characters. Shanta's existence is moved towards Iceland. Even when she sees the mob and sees it, that Iceland over there, she feels that maybe this guy will rescue me. He will save me. I will not be disappointed. But there is a betrayal element to it. So Iceland, whatever all that glistens is not gold. Similarly, whatever is, when you look at an ice candy, it might not be the best sweet vegetable. Also possible. Anything else? Okay, maybe you have questions for regarding to what exit, then you can ask them. That's it. Okay, poem. Poem, the novel, and the short story. Short story. Without one question.
Yes, I have an important acknowledgement in the the short story. See, in the text, at one point, it is said that older attendants at the asylum said that he was a fairly prosperous landlord from Toba State. So he belonged to that particular district, which is also the headquarters, right? Toba State. Now that is a place, that is his homeland. And after some lines, it is said that his real name was Visham Singh, but everybody called him Toba Singh. So he becomes Toba Singh, the place person. The person Vishal Singh becomes synonymous with the place Toba Singh. Now, when at the end of the story, Vishal is saying, where is Toba Singh? In India or Pakistan? Pakistan. He answered with a no. Someone answered Vishal Singh. Now, Vishal Singh tried to run, but was overpowered by the Pakistani guards who tried to push him across the dividing line towards India. However, he wouldn't move. This is Toba Singh, he declared. Right? Then finally, so he declares that this place, where he stands, because he has now become synonymous with the place itself, the land itself, his homeland itself. So wherever he stands, that is Toba Singh. So finally, when at the end of the story you find that in between on a bit of earth which had no name lay Toba Singh. So Toba Singh is that imaginary homeland. It lives as an idea. He never wants to go to either to India or to Pakistan. He always wants to go to Toba Singh, his homeland. So it's for the start of homeland that he ends his life, and his homeland lives in a no man's land, neither in India. Okay, so it's beyond narrow nationalism. It's a psychological notion.
Okay. Now I would like to call our volunteers for honoring thank you cards.
Imagine community. Imagine. So it's ultimately personal perception. It doesn't work by only for